3, 2, 1.
Okay, welcome everybody. It is 9:03 a.m. on April 28th. We are convening a special meeting of Thurston County Board of Health followed directly by our agenda setting meeting of the Board of County Commissioners. I'm just going to call out who's I've got on this virtual call. Ramiro, do you have a?
Yeah, I have a wide range on here. If you allow me, I can probably introduce whomever I see.
Perfect, that works.
Yeah, I see Commissioner Hutchins. I see the Assistant County Manager, Robin Campbell. I see Dennis Osorio. I see Brett. I see Shelley. I believe it's Lydia Hutchins, Lydia Art Story, Kurt, Matt Unselman, Jane. I don't know who Jane is. Bill Richardson. Elizabeth Petrich, Brian Keeley, David Chain, and Tom Webster. And Jacinda just joined us.
Shelley would be Shelley Slaughter, our Director of Public Health and Social Services. Kurt would be Kurt Harden, Emergency Services.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Jane, just for the record, you want to let us know? Ms. Futterman?
Jane Futterman here.
Perfect, that's what I thought. Prosecuting Attorney's Office.
Oh, Jane Futterman, thank you.
Okay, so Commissioner Edwards will be joining us very shortly. I guess we need to approve the agenda for April 28th special meeting.
Commissioner Hutchins, can you unmute, please?
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Yeah, unmuted now. Mr. Chair, I move to approve today's agenda.
Okay, I'll second that. Any further discussion about today's agenda?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 2-0. Agenda approved. Department item, which is item number 2 on the agenda, is an emergency ordinance suspending, waiving, and amending certain provisions of the sanitary code for Thurston County due to COVID-19 outbreak. We have Art Starry of our Environmental Health Division, Director of that division, and I'm going to pass this to you, Art, to lay out. This is, as I understand it, information only for later potential board action as early as Thursday.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Yeah, this is Art Starry. I'm the Environmental Health Division Director. And what's before you today for discussion and review is an emergency ordinance that would amend various provisions of our sanitary code as needed to respond and to provide relief during the coronavirus 19 or COVID-19 outbreak. And so this is basically an attempt to kind of parallel the action that you took a few weeks ago for the Community Planning and Economic Development Code that provided some relief for their permits and extended expiration dates and the like. And so this is a complementary action. The sanitary code actually has several different things that are affected, that have timelines and things that we thought were appropriate for you to consider. And I'll go through them really briefly. And Jane Futterman, who prepared this for us, is also on the phone in case you have questions. And I want to thank Jane for doing most of the hard work on this and doing independent research to make this, I think, a really good ordinance for your consideration. So the highlights of it is that the first thing it does is that it actually extends the time limit for emergency Board of Health actions. Article 1 of the Sanitary Code actually has language that says that any emergency actions that you take expire after 45 days or need to be renewed. So because this actually would take longer or would be in effect longer, some parts of it through the end of the year, this would extend that. So it gives you, basically suspends that through the end of the year. The second part of it is it allows the hearing officer or the health officer to extend deadlines and expiration dates that are appropriate for circumstances that arise due to the COVID-19 outbreak. A lot of the things that we have, hearing dates, timelines, response dates, and all that, those might need to be extended because people are having a difficult time complying with tasks, meeting or complying with agreements and things. And so this gives the folks in that administrative hearing setting, or when things are being under review for an appeal, to be able to extend those dates longer than normal. And so that's, again, we don't have anything in particular case that's in mind today, but over the course of the next several months, we would expect that there might be an administrative hearing decision or something that comes up, or that we might need to review something. And so this gives the hearing officer or the health officer some authority to extend dates. The other thing is that in light of the COVID-19 stuff, we are proposing to amend our hearing process, or to allow some different means for conducting hearings. Currently, all those hearings take place in person. So what this allows is for people to be able to, or the hearing officer to use telephone or mail or other electronic means to be able to allow people to participate in the hearing. And so that's just something that needs to be done, and this would officially allow us to do that. Our section 4 of the ordinance automatically extends food establishment permits that are expiring between March 12th, which is with the date that you declared, the county declared the emergency in response to COVID, to September. Anyways, permits that expire between March 12th and July 31st automatically go to the end of September without any additional fees. And what happens in our food program is that people can get 6 months permits, and they expire at the end of June. And so this allows those to be extended, because we anticipate that a lot of restaurants and food establishments won't be open. And so we want them to be able to have additional time for their permit to be active, or to be able to renew without penalty. Section 5 starts talking about our septic system permits and applications. And so what this does is that it allows or extends by 1 year the expiration date for septic system applications that expire between March 12th, 2020 and September 30th, 2020. Our sanitary code allows for people to ask for an extension. What this does is it will automatically put that in place, because we realize folks with all the COVID stuff going on, they probably aren't paying as much attention to these things as they might otherwise, and it's also more difficult for them to come in and talk to us and about expiration dates and renewals with the limitations of the building development center. So we wanted to be able to just automatically extend that for them without them having to take any additional, do any additional efforts. The same thing applies to, there's two types of applications that apply. One is there's an automatic, or there's a 1 year extension for the first time the thing expires, and then it can be extended one more time. And this allows both of those actions to take place without any additional request by the applicant. Section 6 automatically extends the expiration date to June 30th for any septic system installation permit that expires between March 12th and June 30th. And so that, again, the intent is that if someone was going to be installing their on-site system, we want to be able to give them additional time to do that without having to come in and request that of us. With the shutdowns and the different limitations, it's hard for people to get contractors and to do that work. And up until just recently, a lot of that stuff wasn't even allowed under the governor's order. Section 7 extends the expiration date by 1 year for repair applications that are expiring between March 12th and September 30th. Again, septic repair permits usually have just a 1 year time frame, and so this is extending those to allow folks to go ahead. Of course, the other part of this is if someone really has a failing septic system that's causing a public health problem, we'll be working with them to manage that in the meantime. So it isn't just a blank check to have a failing system without any sort of control. But if there's difficulty in getting it installed and they're working with us, then this gives people the additional time they need to install the system. The other thing that's going on is that we have a lot of operational certificates and time of transfer inspections and things that are going on. And there's provisions in our code that say that the inspection reports need to have been done within the prior year. And so with all the difficulties with COVID and contractors and things, what this does is it'll provide some relief by allowing septic system reports that were done for work done after May 1st, 2019 to be valid for time of transfer through the life of the ordinance. Let me look at that. So again, because people aren't able to do the work, so it's giving them a few extra months, that it's making those inspection reports valid for a few more months. The Section 10, this is a thing that really probably isn't going to apply, but it's a technical fix, is that our swimming pool program has a provision in it that says that any swimming pool permits that aren't renewed by April 1st automatically have a late fee. Well, right now those pools can't even be in operation. So this, in the event that the governor's orders are relaxed and swimming pools are allowed to reopen again, this would allow them to renew their permits without having to pay a late fee or having us to go through some administrative process to provide relief. So this just automatically takes care of that for us. And then the last couple of sections are just kind of the legalese sort of things that Jane can provide, but basically it says that if for some reason we find out that one section of this or the other is invalid or illegal, the rest of it would stay in effect. And then Section 12 establishes the start date for the ordinance and says that it expires at the end of the year.
Board of Health.
And those are the highlights. There's more details here. Again, the ordinance itself is about 5 pages long.
Similar to
And if you have questions, I'm sure I'll do my best to answer, or Jane can help me out.
I see Commissioner Edwards is in the house, so good to see him. Are there questions for Art? I'm going to go to Hutch. You got your hand up.
And it's going to presume the answer, but I'm going to hear it from Art. About 3 weeks ago, I sold my brother's home after he died last year, and the septic had to be pumped and such, and it wasn't any issue to get that done. But I just want to confirm: are septic companies considered essential service? For
doing that sort of work, they are able to go out and do their work. I think some are having some limitations, but yeah, for doing the work to keep a system from failing, that's allowed. In other words, so maintenance is allowed.
Okay, thank you.
I'll have a couple questions. So first, I'd just say that on the back of our Board of Health packet, there's a summary of the ordinance that kind of goes through the section by section without the legal language, just kind of an explanation. So that's helpful for anyone following along at home or also the other commissioners. On Section 6, it talks about a period between March 12th and June 30th. Elsewhere, it's talking about through July 31st. Is there a reason why we're picking June 30th on that particular section?
Jane, can you refresh my memory on why we picked that? No. Go ahead.
Jane, I'm not hearing you very clearly.
I can't remember. I will have to look back at my notes, and we can do that before Thursday and see if that was an error. But I believe that we had some communication from the folks in the on-site program, and they said June 30th was the appropriate date. But let's clarify whether that should also be September 30th, and we'll get back to you on that one.
Okay, I feel like, I guess I'm getting confused. The July sticks in my head because we were going to extend on the building stuff. We were going to extend through July, and then that was the request from OMB, and then we decided to move to September. But that's a slightly different issue. Yeah, I was just curious why there were two different dates there. The other question I had was on Section 9. I just not sure I understand the length of this. I think Art said something about until as long as the ordinance is in effect or something. But when I read the legal language, it doesn't even say that.
So I can go ahead, Jane, again, I can go ahead and respond to that. So this one is on inspection reports. And whereas most of the sections of the ordinance are forward looking, this one basically looks back. And so so basically what it's saying is, as long as the time of transfer. So this is for people who are transferring ownership of septic systems or property where there is one located, and they are required to get an inspection of that system, as long as that the inspection was done after March 1st of 2019, it will still remain valid. So normally, if it was done March 1, 2019, the inspection would no longer be accepted by the health department and valid after basically the end of February 2020. And so this gives them an extension of those older inspection reports up until September 30th of this year. I think I said that appropriately. Art, chime in if I made a mistake there.
That's correct. In practice, what's happening is folks are calling us and saying, because of difficulties, do they want to know, do I need to get it pumped again and all that? So this provides some relief for a few months for those folks, a few additional months of relief for those folks.
Did that clarify it all, or is that?
Oh, yeah, okay. I think I got it. Because you're basically extending it through to September 30th.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, if it would normally expire after February 29th of this year, it actually will be good and accepted by the department all through September 30th.
Okay.
Yeah, an example would be, imagine that someone had their septic tank pumped on March 1st of 2019, and they came in today without this code revision, and they said, I want to complete my time of transfer stuff. We would say, well, you need to get your system inspected again because you're a month and a half over. So what this does is it allows that inspection to remain valid until the end of September.
March 1st, 2019. Okay, I'm tracking you. Thank you very much. Commissioner Edwards, did you have anything?
No, I've reviewed this, and I would like to thank Art and Jane for trying to make this situation we're dealing with to help folks out that are going to be running up against timeframes. So thank you for going that extra mile.
Commissioner Hutchings.
Should that discussion you just had, should we add September 30, 2020 to section number 9?
Oh, I think it's actually in there. It's just worded. I think it's in there. I was missing the fact that we were dating this from 2019, and then in the highlight summary, it doesn't have the
Okay, so it's
the
in the
end date,
ordinance.
but it does in the ordinance. So I'm good.
Got it, never mind. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about this particular agenda item? I'm not hearing or seeing any.
Yep, you got it. Commissioner.
Romero.
Yeah, Romero.
Before you close the meeting, commissioners, I do have scheduled another special Board of Health meeting for Thursday. That will be April 30, 2020, at 10 in the afternoon, where this item will be before you for a final consideration.
April 30th, 10 a.m. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. Then with that, I'm going to adjourn today's special meeting of the Board of Health, April 28th, 2020 at 9:20 a.m. Pass the baton to the Chair of the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, thank you, and thanks, Jane.
Yeah, thank you. So again, the date is April 28th, 2020, and this is the Board of County Commissioners. Let me get the right. It's the work session, and hang on here. There we go. And so this is the work session and agenda setting. And for those of you that want to dial in, you can dial in at 360-252-9020, and your PIN is 1234. Very unique. So we're going to start with a COVID-19 update, and I'm going to guess that's coming from PHSS Director Shelley Slaughter. Shelley, you there?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
You can hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, I will jump right into our report this week, starting with our latest available data. So as of yesterday, statewide in Washington, there are 13,521 confirmed cases of COVID-19 and unfortunately 749 deaths. In Thurston County, as of yesterday, we stand at 100 cases and 1 death. In some encouraging news, we have seen the percentage of positive tests for COVID-19 begin to decline. So the statewide positive test rate is 8%. And in Thurston County, we have conducted 4,235 tests with 2% being positive, and that is a reduction from 3% in previous weeks. So this is good news. Also, 95 out of 100 Thurston County residents that have tested positive have been released from public health monitoring and are now recovering. Again, we don't know what the long-term impacts are of COVID-19. So our definition of recovering is that we no longer need to keep them on isolation and quarantine or quarantine with public health. Since the COVID-19 outbreak started in Thurston County, 17 of people have been hospitalized. We have had no outbreaks in congregate care facilities. This week, a change that we do see on the weekly data report that you received and will be posted on our website every Tuesday shows that every single zip code in Thurston County now has positive cases of COVID-19. So community transmission of COVID-19 is widespread throughout Thurston County. So as we begin to prepare for a return to public life, as Governor Inslee calls it, and turning the dial, there are some core essential capabilities that our public health and healthcare system need to have in place before the stay home, stay healthy order can be further relaxed. So that includes increasing the number of case investigators and contact tracers. I'm happy to report that we have been diligently working on this, even to include having a training this morning to double the number of our case investigators and contact tracers. They also provide wraparound support for those on isolation and quarantine. We have an isolation and quarantine site established, thanks to our partnership with emergency management and the support that that team has been providing, led by our own Keely Marino. So we are happy to have that ready to go in the event that is needed. At this time, no one has needed it. This quarantine and isolation facility is for anyone in our community who may not have a home or safe place to isolate or quarantine if they have COVID-19 or are suspected to have COVID-19 and awaiting test results. Testing is a really core capacity that we need to increase statewide as well as in Thurston County in order for people to safely return to public life. That will enable us in public health to be able to very quickly identify people and their households who may have COVID-19 and need to be quickly isolated if they're sick or quarantined if they may have been exposed. Currently, we're really happy that we have a community-based testing site run by Providence St. Peter Hospital out in Hawks Prairie, and we have many healthcare providers in our community that are able to offer testing. What we need to do is dramatically increase testing. This last week, Dr. Yu issued a health alert to our providers asking them to please test all symptomatic people. So as we have been able to increase our testing supplies and also laboratory capacity to process those supplies, we can change those restrictions to allow for more people to be tested. We can't control the supply chain or the private laboratory capacity, but that's something we are working in partnership with Washington State Department of Health and our healthcare partners across the state to increase. The CDC this week did add some new symptoms of COVID-19. The most common and previously reported symptoms included fever, cough, and shortness of breath or difficulty breathing. New symptoms that have been identified in many people experiencing COVID-19 include body aches and muscle pain, sore throat, chills and shaking, headache, and loss of taste or smell. So Dr. Yu recommends that anyone with 3 or more of those symptoms seek testing. So speaking of the return to public life, we are planning and trying to support our community and provide guidance as to what that might look like. In this last week, as you know, the governor allowed residential construction to continue, and yesterday announced that next week, starting on May 5th, that certain recreation activities such as hunting, fishing, and state parks may be accessed. We'd like to emphasize that it's very critical that people continue to adhere to maintaining social distancing, so 6 feet social distancing, and encourage people to wear cloth face coverings whenever they are in a situation where social distancing may not be possible. But a mask does not protect people from getting COVID-19, but it does protect others. So very important to continue to maintain that social distancing, wash hands, sanitize surfaces, stay home if ill with any one of those symptoms. Encourage you to encourage people to stay home. And that concludes my report. Do you have any questions?
Yeah. Gary?
How many do we actually have in the hospital currently, or how many beds are we tying up?
I do not have that number as of this morning, so I am not sure. And also, because our local hospitals are regional hospitals that do see patients from other counties, sometimes they have COVID positive patients that are hospitalized, but they do not reside in Thurston County. So at this time, as of today, I do not know how many cases are hospitalized that are Thurston County residents, but I can get that information for you.
That's fine. I was just thinking from the public's perspective, though. I mean, we're not overloaded in there. Should they or their loved one come down to this, they're going to have adequate medical attention, I guess.
Yes, sir. We get a daily report from our hospitals that report their bed capacity, their ICU capacity, ventilator capacity, days on hand for personal protective equipment. And we also have weekly calls with our hospital executives, and they are reporting that they have sufficient bed capacity to treat those with COVID-19 and others.
And how about the turnaround for testing? How long has that taken? Have we cut that down some?
Yes, it has. Good news that it has gone down. 48 hours is about the average that we are seeing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Ty, go ahead.
Shelley, my question is, with the governor making the move that he made with the parks and state lands, is there some reason, is it going to be the recommendation that the county track that move with our county parks? I know we had a discussion about this a few weeks ago, or is there something about our county parks that's different that you would recommend that we stay where we're at on those, or is that something? I mean, I'm just kind of wondering how those two things fit in your estimation.
Sure. At this time, we would recommend that Thurston County continue to keep Thurston County parks closed, but I think that would be a good discussion to have in the coming weeks. The governor's date for reopening some of those recreation activities and parks is May 5th. And one thing about certain types of parks, access and the ability to properly social distance and control crowds and people from congregating really vary based upon lots of different factors. So certainly open to discussing that further.
That's all I had. Thanks.
All right, Romero?
Yeah, related to that, maybe following up to the question Commissioner Messer stated, I think at this point, based on the governor's order, we might be able to open the parking lots at the Chambers Lake as well as the Water Bay parking lots that leads to the county trail, Chehalis Western Trail. Since those are owned by the state agencies, so I believe we can go ahead and open those parking lots as well.
Well, that's good news if we do that. When will that come back to the board?
Come back to the board, what, sir?
To open the parking lots?
As a matter of conversation, I can probably bring that next Tuesday, if that is okay with you.
Yeah, is that fine, commissioners?
Tomorrow would be better, but I guess we're gonna try to stay consistent.
Okay. All right. Shelley, I have a question, and that is two of them. Number one, the increase of tracers and investigators. Do we have any idea how many?
Yes, in Thurston County, we committed to doubling the number of our case investigators and contact tracers. And so that for us is 38. As you know, prior to COVID-19, the number of staff that we have to do this work in our disease control and prevention program is a total of 4 people. And they have been doing an absolute amazing, incredible job working every single day since we have been in response. And we have reallocated other staff from other programs to help and support them, as well as some amazing Medical Reserve Corps volunteers that have been trained and assisting us. So we are very grateful, and for others that are interested in volunteering or supporting us in this work, we encourage them to visit our Medical Reserve Corps website for more information about that.
Okay, and I have one more question. Growing up, we weren't allowed to go swimming within an hour after eating. If you had a meal, you could not go into the pool or at the beach. You couldn't go into the water unless you had an hour. And whether it be fact or fiction, old wives' tale, whatever, I don't know, or fable. So my question is this: with the opening of fishing, the opening of the state parks, opening of construction, is it safe to go into the water yet? For everything open up. I am getting mail. I'm sure my seatmates are. Open up the schools, open up the state, open up business, open up everything now. These numbers are fake. They're falsified. Open everything up. What's your best advice, or Dr. Yu's best advice?
Regarding opening up water recreation activities?
No, regarding opening up everything business as usual now. It's all fake news. Let's go.
It is absolutely the number of COVID cases and deaths that we have seen across our state, across our nation, across the world are absolutely real and devastating. And it is critically important that everyone continue to at this time to stay home and stay healthy as much as possible. Follow all of our public health guidance. Any of these efforts to reopen anything could very quickly have to be put back in place, which could be devastating to people's lives and to our economy even further. If we open too soon, people congregate and do not adhere to social distancing or do not take the threat of COVID-19 seriously, we could see many more cases, many more deaths right here in Thurston County with friends and family that we know, and we want to do everything that we can to prevent that. And we know that it's a sacrifice, and it's been very challenging for people and for kids and parents and people that are separated from their loved ones, but people are doing a wonderful job in making these sacrifices for the greater good and protecting the most vulnerable, high-risk people in our community.
Okay, so as we're getting closer to dipping our toe into the water and maybe a foot, we're not ready to jump in yet with public gatherings and public functions and such? Not yet?
That's right. It is much too soon for that. The modeling that we are seeing shows that if we were to relax some of the key mitigation efforts, such as people staying home, then we would very quickly see more cases. And also, this time has been very critical for us to be able to increase our supply chain for PPE. I know Director Harden is going to provide a report right after me, but it's also allowed public health to build up this capability that's going to be really, really critical to us in the coming months and year to 2 years until we have a vaccine and treatment for COVID-19. These are our best tools that we have, and we don't want to take any chances by relaxing things too soon and seeing a resurgence of COVID-19.
All right, thank you. Any other questions from Commissioners Edwards or Menzer? County Manager, you're done?
Just a comment. I mean, if you had told me 6 weeks ago that we'd be sitting, given the explosion in King County, that we'd be sitting at 100 cases and 1 death, I would have taken that in a heartbeat. So I really appreciate your team, Shelley. I think you guys are doing a great job, and I think the community should really be, be aware of that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I would echo that. When I was down last Thursday or Friday at the EOC, tons of people down there working their fingers to the bone to keep it functioning, keep it flowing, and doing what they can. So good job, Shelley, and to Kurt also. So Kurt, you're on next.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services. Just to dovetail into what Director Slaughter talked about, the ECC, as you just mentioned, has been activated since March 3rd. We have both emergency management staff working in there since that date, and also Medic One staff working in support of EMS out in the community. One of the things I'm going to focus in on is PPE. And I will tell you that, first of all, there's a consideration at the state level for changing policy and how PPE is distributed to local jurisdictions. Since the beginning of the pandemic, PPE has been provided at no charge for healthcare providers and first responders from the state. It's the process that we utilize is counties collect information on PPE requirements inside of the county, send that to the state, and the state then turns and distributes PPE down to the counties. Now, I will tell you there is a shortage of PPE. There has been since the beginning of the pandemic. So what we do is there's a Department of Health has created a tiered process on how that PPE should be distributed. An example is hospitals are in tier 1. The EMS providers and first responders that are in contact with COVID suspected cases are tier 1. So there's a tiered process that goes from tier 1 to 4. The change that they're starting to talk about, or they're not talking about, they're looking at implementing either on May 15th or June 1st now, is to start charging the counties for PPE. And then in turn, it's the county's decision if they pass that cost of the PPE on to the providers. An example would be, as we have a number of long-term care facilities here, skilled nursing homes in Thurston County, instead of that PPE going to them for free, they may end up having to pay for that. That creates an administrative burden on top of Thurston County. Plus, we have 3 different types of PPE. We have donated PPE from the state. We have strategic national stockpile PPE that comes in to the state and they send down to the local jurisdictions. And then we have what the state has procured for PPE. We would only be able to charge for what the state has procured and would charge us. So we would have to also triple our accounting by trying to determine who gets what types of PPE, whether it's donated, whether it's from the strategic national stockpile, which would be no charge, and then what the state has purchased, which would be a charge. It's going to create a burden to the county. Also, we've had approximately 150 organizations inside of Thurston County that have been receiving PPE from the county through this process since the beginning of the pandemic. I will tell you, internal to the Thurston County government, only with some small exceptions, only the Thurston County Sheriff's Office receives PPE directly, and they would, from the county, from the our Emergency Coordination Center, and their amount of usage is very small compared to the vast majority of PPE that goes out. And to date, as of this week, we estimate $120,000 in PPE value has been distributed to these organizations around the county. It'll be very challenging for Thurston County to administratively take care of this and put this in place, but also the cost to Thurston County with declining revenues, increased costs for the pandemic, that burden would fall on Thurston County if we did not charge this out to other organizations. The last piece of this is our concern from Dr. Yu and the public health is that if we start passing a cost along to facilities, healthcare facilities, they may be less inclined to follow the guidance being issued for care of patients and care of healthcare providers, because now they are suddenly being charged for PPE and required to use PPE that they didn't have in place before the pandemic. A lot of guidance and changes occurred inside of healthcare facilities regarding the use of PPE, and it's provided an increased cost to those facilities. So I am in the process of sending a draft letter for your consideration later today. It'll go through the county manager to send to the governor requesting reconsideration of this decision because of the administrative burden it's going to place on the counties, and also because of the concern that it may dissuade healthcare facilities from utilizing PPE.
I am appalled. Probably shouldn't be surprised, but I'm appalled at that decision for them to do that. For example, the state's declared an emergency. We have declared an emergency. This is emergency equipment, and now to be held, I don't want to say I'll say hostage, that if you want this, you're going to have to pay for it. I find exceedingly offensive and obscene. But I'll turn it over to because we had a major fire and a disaster declared, we would get some essential aid under mutual aid. And I don't think we're charged for that. I might be wrong, but I don't think we're charged for that. Commissioner Edwards?
Kurt, if you're gonna submit a letter for the board, could you check with the Washington Association of Counties and see if they aren't going to be doing the same thing and possibly might be interested in joining with us on that letter?
Yeah, my understanding is that the Association of Counties is aware of this and is interested in this. And so I do not know the details of that. I know Robin Campbell, and I don't know if she's on the call, but I know she has been part of that discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Robin.
We have a weekly call with WASAC. It's this afternoon, and that's something that I was planning to bring up.
Thank you.
Good, thank you. Commissioner Menser?
Nothing.
Okay, Romero, anything? Yes, go ahead.
Related to this item, and I believe Commissioner Hutchins and I believe Commissioner Menser participated on the webinar Zoom meeting yesterday with WASAC, the legislative arm of WASAC. And it was a good briefing, I believe. It was a few counties at a time. Yesterday was the turn of Thurston County, with a couple of other counties. Within that information, Eric Johnson, the executive director of WASAC, stated there is, out of the CARES Act, there was a direct allocation to counties and cities, about $500,000 the federal government provided in order to respond to the COVID-19 emergency. That was a direct distribution. For counties and cities below the 500,000 population threshold, the state was going to distribute those dollars. So yesterday, Eric Johnson stated, and I believe the governor also stated in his news conference, there is about $300 million that it will be distributed to local jurisdictions below 500,000 population, and it's going to be distributed per capita, per population. So this morning, Robin Campbell sent me a spreadsheet as to what the potential distribution will be here in Thurston County. So let me walk you through what the potential distribution will be, and then I'll close back in terms of this is not free money, by the way, but a piece of good news. So out of the $300 million, Thurston County will potentially receive $15.7 million. Bucota will receive $25,000. Lacey, $1.5 million. Olympia, close to $1.6 million. Rainier, $63,000. Tenino, $55,000. Tom Water, $721,000, and Yelm, $274,000. And this is a table that WASAC submitted this morning, they allocates across the state. So this is a result of the CARES Act. There is part of the conversation yesterday was there's a supplanting clause. So we cannot use this potential $15.7 million to supplant any gaps on the revenue during this emergency, during this pandemic. So it really is related to anything that we had to do above and beyond what we have in the current budget allocation to respond to this emergency. So those are the parameters. Robin and I will be talking with Shelley as well as Kurt as to how we can probably present a plan to the board as to how we can probably utilize this additional funding. Good news, however, and that is really the news, is good news, we have an allocation to meet the demands of this emergency. However, there's a lot of strings attached to this money. Robin?
I would also say that it's created a perception that counties have plenty of money. This is the pot of money that legislatures or congressmen are referring to when they say counties were taken care of in the CARES Act and why we don't need another congressional allocation. But this money doesn't cover our costs. So the other thing is this is why the state thinks we have a lot of money and are asking us to pay for the PPE. They're considering eliminating the match that the state was planning to provide for FEMA funds for local governments, because those are things that we could use this money for. But there are some pretty extreme limitations. I'm in the process of reading the Treasury guidelines right now. Here they are, 4 pages of them, and we'll have more information for you soon on what is eligible for this. But as Romero said, nothing in the budget, anything that was planned for in the budget prior to March 27th is not an allowable cost. Regular salaries are not an allowable cost, and the money must be spent by December 31st of this year. More to come.
Commissioner Edwards, you had your hand up.
I just thought maybe the county manager could clarify. I think the total is 15 million, but that's to be divided up amongst all the other jurisdictions, isn't it?
No, that's for Thurston County.
Yeah, the numbers that I laid out is actually each jurisdiction will receive that money.
And Thurston County will get 15 million,
15.7, that is
their share.
That's the
our
current
share
county share.
as a jurisdiction, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menser, any questions or comments?
Robin, you said it doesn't cover our costs. Are you talking about the eligible COVID response costs, or are you talking about the costs that, given that we're going to lose revenue in all these other ways? What did you mean by that?
So that means the lost revenue costs and costs.
Okay.
Costs that the county is incurring in response to COVID-19 are going to be covered by this money, but not all of them are eligible. And that's part of what we have to work through. And we have, I think I've told you about the COVID-19 finance team, the fiscal response team. One of the things that team is working on is saying, okay, here's the money that the county is receiving. Here's our costs. What of this grant money can pay for which of these expenditures? So there are still gaps, but we're working on it.
Well, if the PPE issue is covered, then it seems a little weird to be complaining about $120,000 of PPE if we're getting 15.7 million targeted toward costs like that. There are other gaps that we should be complaining about, but that may not be the one to enhance our credibility if that's one of the contemplated expenses that this CARES money is for.
So $15 million sounds like a lot of money, but I think you'll be surprised at what the need is and the amount of requests that we receive for this money.
And that might just,
All of it.
and that might just be the start. Here's some money, but now we're gonna charge you for everything that we're giving you.
Right.
It's just a philosophical, statement I made. Anything else, on that topic, Romero?
No, sir.
Okay. Kurt, do you have anything further?
One last thing, the governor last week eased the restrictions on construction. However, a new wrinkle in that is construction companies are now coming forward and asking for PPE to help them with resuming operations. The challenge with that is that they do not fit into the Department of Health's tier guidance on distributing PPE to healthcare and first responders. So until we can get to 100% of our tier 4 first responders and healthcare workers being supplied with the PPE, we won't have to consider that question. But so right now, that's not a question that's on the table because we just don't have the PPE to give them, even if that was a decision made by the county to distribute out to private individuals.
Interesting. Yeah, okay. Thank you, Kurt. Now we're gonna move on to homeless strategies with Keely Marino.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning, Keely.
It's good to see you and hear you all. I don't have tons to report today. We are moving forward, continuing on with our homeless response, with our outreach efforts, sheltering, increase of hygiene, all of that is continuing on. Those activities moving forward for, I think, the last 4 or 5 weeks, pretty much without any kind of interruption. So that's great news. This last week, I was invited and then participated in a town hall with the city of Olympia to highlight the county's efforts to respond to COVID with regards to folks experiencing homelessness, and it was very well received. There were about 180 or so individuals who were on that webinar, and they offered a lot of questions that between Keith Staley, myself, and Gabe Ash from Catholic Community Services, we were able to handle those questions quite well. It's important to know that in 2 nights, our hazardous weather shelter beds are, that those contracts are over for some of our shelters, or one of our shelters. That'd be Salvation Army's cold weather contract ends on the 30th. And I received word today that St. Mike's and Sacred Heart shelters will also, the 30th will also be their final night. Now, they're not contracted with the county. They run on their own dime and on their own in-kind donation of volunteers. The Sacred Heart shelter has only been running for about 2 weeks, and that's brand new. That was 10 beds for women. And then for St. Mike's, the first year again, where unprecedented number of individual men could stay, they went from 15 to 30. So they've just been such amazing partners during this really difficult time, and we're sad for their time to end. And that's also what happens every year on April 30th. So important to know that those beds are no longer available. There's also been a lot of discussion about a significant increase of calls to various agencies from folks experiencing and trying or attempting to flee domestic violence. Last week on the Homeless Housing Hub call, we were informed from Safe Place that they are not doing any intakes into their shelter. They have 2 families remaining there. They are only putting up shelter or folks into hotel rooms for about 3 days at a time that call in on their crisis line. Their crisis line is open and available 24/7, yet they're just unable to shelter anyone. And so Family Support Center and Partners in Prevention Education, and I can't remember the other agency that mentioned that they are receiving a significant increase in calls from people both unhoused and housed seeking support and services for domestic violence. So that's a significant concern. We'll be meeting this week, hopefully, to do some strategic thinking and planning around that issue. And that's pretty much it for our team. We're plugging away on the quarantine and isolation. That's a majority of what we're working on right now. Other than just keeping up with all of the partners and ensuring then that they have up-to-date information and that we are in lockstep in terms of collaboration.
Keely, two things. Number one, since you mentioned Safe Place, do you want to give their phone number out? Just
I
so,
I used to have it memorized. Give me just 1 second.
I thought you might have it memorized.
Almost. It's been a minute, so I will definitely give you that number.
Okay, but the second thing while you're looking that up is Sarah Gensler, reporter with the Olympian, wrote a great article yesterday regarding Olympia's homeless response coordinator resigning, Colin DeForest. So, and the article is pretty comprehensive, explains what the city is doing, parceling out his tasks and chores and what he's done, his accomplishments. But my question is this, with Colin being gone now, is this going to impact, or how will it impact Thurston County?
You know, so I've been aware of his resignation for several weeks. I believe that it's been 3 or 4 weeks since Colin has not been employed with the City of Olympia. And prior to that, he was I think he had some sick leave. So primarily Carrie Retland, myself, the ambassadors, Catherine Trahan and Teal Russell, and now Ty Gendel and Robert Bruce, and Brandon Alt, we've all been working very closely together, and it seems that they haven't really skipped a beat in terms of response. It does mean that Carrie Retland has been taking on quite a lot more than his original job description, but they seem to have not skipped a beat at all. They're just really stepping up their game.
Good, okay.
Yeah, they're doing great.
Commissioners, go ahead.
Oh, wait, I have the Safe Place crisis line, which is 360-754-6300.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Keely?
I
Go ahead, Commissioner Minzer.
I listened to you on the City of Olympia webinar, Keely. Good job there. The question I had was about some of the different agencies that provide services. Last year, for example, Sidewalk was in a crisis and needed some emergency funding. This year, obviously, we've had this pandemic, which is, I would imagine, sort of changing the demands on the different agencies, and from there, what they budgeted for, and then also affecting their budget if they had fundraising activities that had to be canceled and whatnot. So are there any sort of gaping emergency gaps that you're aware of amongst our various service providers that may be something that we're going to see a request for, or somebody folding up shop because they can't keep the doors open? Is there any intelligence of that nature that you could share?
I would say that any one of the agencies would say, we'll take more resources.
Of course.
But I think that one of the things I'm thinking a lot about is the 2828 Martin Way shelter that was stood up with the City of Olympia, Interfaith Works, and funded through Thurston County's Commerce Grant, that those funds run out at the end of June. And I don't foresee in the near future social distancing no longer being required within congregate shelter. So I'm concerned about 2828 Martin Way being able to maintain operations as we move forward. That's one thing that I'm very concerned about.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Edwards, anything?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Keely, thank you very kindly. That's it? That's all you have?
That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
Let's do this. It is 10 o'clock, and where are we on the agenda? Yeah, let's go ahead and take a break. We'll take a 10-minute break right now. It's 10 o'clock. We'll be back at 10:10. Thank you very much. Romero,
And we're live.
am I still blurry?
You're good.
3, 2, 1.
All right, thank you and welcome back. It is still April 28, 2020, and this is the agenda setting work session for the Thurston County Board of County Commissioners. And we're picking up where we left off, and we're going to number one, I want to advise you that the April Board of County Commissioner meeting next week, I want to consider it, if that's canceled.
Commissioners, you took an action to cancel all the formal Board of County Commissioners meetings for the month of April. Obviously, that is, the last one would have been today. So the next one is next week, which is May 5th. Considering the circumstances, I'd recommend for you to cancel next week's formal Board of County Commissioners meeting.
All right, C. Bates, you want to weigh in, Commissioner Menser?
I agree.
Edwards?
I guess so.
All right, you got it. There's a 3. 3 thumbs up.
However, but your legislative work continues, although the formal meeting is canceled because we don't have means for the public to come in, but your legislative functions continues. I just want to make sure that is well understood with the public.
Got it, okay. So we're going to review that agenda anyway now, aren't we? The week of May 5th.
Yes, sir.
Starting with a proclamation for Emergency Medical Services Week.
Yeah, for your consideration, you have a copy on your packet, and this is a proclamation declaring May 17th through May 23rd, 2020 as the Emergency Medical Services Week in Thurston County. If you like, I can probably walk you through the whereases.
I don't think I need that.
Okay.
Commissioner Menser?
This is certainly timely given what we're facing, but I thought we had stated that the proclamations weren't necessary and routine and that we weren't going to proceed with those during this time of reduced activity.
And the reasons before you is just because of the situation, that's all it is. But it's up to the board as to how you'd like to proceed.
Good point, though. Commissioner Edwards, anything on this, the proclamation? Do you need to have it ready right now?
I guess, no, the only thing I would question is, it seems like we did proclamations regularly during all of our meetings, so that doesn't mean that it's routine. I don't know the answer to that. It sounds like Commissioner Menser has a question on it.
Well, it might be routine, but it has to be necessary and routine. So I think it doesn't fall among the necessary part. But I mean, I'm not the lawyer. I just remember I thought that's the advice that we got when we were discussing this about a month ago or so, that we weren't going to do the proclamations because they weren't necessary and routine.
But also within that conversation with your attorney, it give you, the board, some discretion as to what you determine routine necessary.
I don't know what, if someone wants to take us to court to invalidate our proclamation of emergency service week, I suppose they could do that. So I imagine we're pretty safe if we want to do it.
Yeah, if it was national, like a proclamation for the groundhog or the gopher or something. But this, I understand Medical Services Week is kind of important and very apropos right now, but I just don't want to run afoul of what we said we were going to not do or what we can't do. But I don't need it read to me though. Romero, thank you. So we're gonna, go ahead.
So I guess the question that I have for the board is, do you want me to bring back this proclamation next week for you to actually formalize your the action or not?
I would suggest checking with Elizabeth.
Elizabeth is online.
Oh, Elizabeth.
Hello, Commissioners.
Hi, have you been tracking?
Yes, I have been tracking. I didn't quite catch what the proclamation was about.
Elizabeth, the proclamation is declaring the week of May 17th through May 23rd, Emergency Medical Services Week.
Well, I think that's within your discretion. I mean, we are in the middle of an emergency, and you are looking at a proclamation recognizing that and honoring these people. So I say it's within your discretion to take action on it.
Commissioner Edwards.
I guess I would like to say we should cheerlead for these folks. And if that's what this is a bit of a recognition for their exceptional activity, I think we should move ahead with it.
If I'm there. Yep, so that's 3 thumbs up for next week, Romero. Thank you.
It sounds good, so we'll bring that. And we'll circulate this proclamation for your review and signature.
Okay. Number 2, IT Director, purchasing court video.
Yeah, this is one of the IT projects. They have been in the work for quite some time. And last week, we provided information to the board. There's some of the big IT projects. We just put a pause on that, considering the financial impacts the county may face. Perhaps this is a little bit different. And the reason that it's a little bit different is because of the court functions will have to change here in the foreseeable future as to how they conduct their business. And because social distancing is going to be extremely difficult for them to achieve on a court setting. So what this item is going to do is going to provide a video conferencing measure as to how they can reach out to the public via a more comprehensive video system. And that is why the reason as to why this item is before you, for you to consider moving forward. And I do believe that it's related to this emergency, and I do believe that you may consider moving forward on this. Dennis is online to give you additional perspective. Dennis?
Good morning, Commissioners. Dennis Osorio, IT Director. Can everyone hear me good?
Yes.
Okay. So as Romero said, this project actually predates me. This has been in the works for over a year now, but obviously as the current situation, it's been brought to light how much more this project would have helped in the current situation, both providing services to the public as well as internal operations if we already had this new system in place. The current system is 2 separate systems, so it's an audio system and a video system. They're separated. And there's definitely some end of life along those components. But this new system would be all integrated into one. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
No, continue on, Dennis. I was trying to get Commissioner Hutchings' attention. That's okay. Go ahead, Dennis, and then I'll comment.
Okay. This new system, it also has built-in capability. So then we would, after it was put in, we'd be able to integrate with Zoom, Teams, or we'd be able to do all of what we're doing right now using the court infrastructure cameras that are there. So we've currently set up some virtual courts, and it's been somewhat challenging because we're doing it basically with what we already have, which is essentially laptops set up in different locations. So I guess, so it's a fully integrated system all in one, and it replaces a lot of not only outdated infrastructure, but in addition allows for much more functionality in the future if we have to continue to either deal with the current situation or it reappears in the fall or anything else along those lines. And I could talk about some other portions of the project, but I just wanted to leave that up. Is there any technical or actual IT related questions?
Commissioner Edwards, go ahead.
Yes, this question is probably for Robin or the county manager about where is this money coming from?
And I could speak to that a little bit as well. Around $390,000 has been collected in IT reserves in between the large application fund and the infrastructure reserve. An additional $80,000 is being brought for the trial court improvement fund. And the difference to that, and the remaining balance would be collected in the future over 5 years from the stakeholder areas. And Robin, if you have anything else to add, I think that kind of captures all of the numbers.
My concern is whether it's general fund money or other money.
The additional cost that's not been collected yet will be collected from the general fund into the large IT reserve to pay for this project.
And whereabouts did the 390,000 come from? Wasn't that also a portion of it as general fund?
It was collected from the general fund. This is a project to pay for video capability in the courts, and the courts are paid by general fund money.
Does this tie in with the memo recently put out by Darren Bennett about kind of pausing on certain expenditures in this arena?
That was the memo that you, I think the auditor's office, it was related to the ERP.
Yes.
That's the large IT project.
And the recommendation was that this be put on some type of a hold until we get this mess figured out, isn't it?
So
That
we
big
did
project.
put the ERP project on hold, but it's a completely different
Yeah.
project. We
Well-
can't stop all of our IT projects.
No, but this is new activity is the way I see this. And I'm not saying it isn't necessary. I just don't see that this is an emergent expenditure and could be, part of this could be if we're doing it because of this COVID-19, possibly we can draw that money out of the COVID-19 fund if that's what's going to be causing us to do this. So I don't see that I can be in favor of this expenditure at this point in time without further debate, possible bid processes. I just hate to move ahead with business as usual because I don't think we are ever going to see business as usual based on the past.
So allow me to clarify, this is not a new project. This project has been in the works for quite some time, and that is why we have been collecting funding to eventually go through this project. I think it's the reason that I stated that we bring this item for your consideration just timely related to this emergency, but this project was not generated by this emergency. So forgive me if I misspoke or you misunderstood me, but it's the reason that we're bringing this item for your consideration is because of the current situation. It will allow the courts to conduct their business in the long-term foreseeable future to maintain the social distancing in a way.
Robin, go ahead.
The project could not be funded out of any of our CARES Act funding because it's been provided for in our county budget. So it would not be eligible due to supplanting. It is also my understanding, and Dennis can speak to this, that the current video system is not only outdated, but will soon be unsupported. And unfunctional, and we need it to continue to function.
Yes, that is correct. There's actually already some unsupported components, critical components within the system. And just to touch on the bidding portion, we're using an interlocal agreement, interlocal contract from Pierce County. They did basically the exact same project we did a couple of years ago.
Commissioner Menser, any questions or comments regarding this?
Most of what I was going to ask has basically been covered. I mean, I figured the answer was no, it wouldn't be covered, even though it was being described as something that would expand capacity of the system to deal with the COVID-19. The fact that it just happened to be something we were planning to do anyway, I guess, kind of sinks us. Even though it sounds like we very well might be pausing the project, but for the COVID-19, if it was a budget, if it was a budget crisis for some other reason, maybe we would be pausing it. So if that's not an avenue, I guess a couple of questions I have, Dennis has answered, I think, probably as well as he's going to be able to, but my question was, what percentage of this project is replacing, is replacing what is we already had versus an expansion of capability, in terms of, he was describing that we could do things that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise, that we may need to do. I do see the argument that this is a little different than some other expenditures that we may be pausing, like ERP or something else. But at the same time, I really hate dealing with things. I think of it as like a conveyor belt, I guess is the right thing. I don't like dealing with money on a conveyor belt type of basis where I see something, I'm told about it, I make a decision, and I don't know what's further down the conveyor belt. So then once I find 4 or 5 items down the conveyor belt, I realize the decision I made on the first item wasn't really the right decision. So without knowing how many other capital, Lacey, for example, has paused all of its capital projects. I'm sure that's something that we're going to be discussing in the next 10 days after our elected officials meeting. Without knowing how many projects we have, how many such requests like this there are, I'm just seeing the first thing on the conveyor belt, and I feel very uncomfortable saying, yeah, go ahead, and then finding out there's 7 or 8 or 10 or 15 other major projects that might be more important once I hear the ins and outs of them. So I'm not against this, but, and I know it's not for decision today, but I may need another week or two before I'm ready to pull the trigger myself.
So one of the things that Dennis and I have discussed that he's preparing is a list of all of the large IT projects and the priority, if you will, of when they need to be replaced, based on criteria of, is the system unsupported? What's the critical need? Given those kind of criteria, we've got Munis and Eden, and it made sense to pause the ERP project because those systems are still working. And while Eden will eventually be unsupported by Tyler, that's a few years down the road. Whereas with this system, the videos for the courts were already to a point where the system is unsupported and we're reaching a point of critical need. So Dennis is in the process of preparing that list so that you will have here are the things. Amanda's another one. We are beyond the time of need for a replacement for the Amanda system. So we will soon have that list. It'll be prioritized. We'll have an indication of what we have already collected to be able to pay for these systems so that you will have more information. We're working on that.
That'll help. Thank you so much.
So I just want to understand, did you have something, Dennis?
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick, as far as peeling apart the additional functionality, obviously we're combining the audio and visual systems into one integrated system. And we did work with the courts over the past year about peeling apart any extra functionality that they're asking for. And that is why the Trial Court Improvement Fund is bringing the $80,000. Those were things that we could identify that were complete add-ons. Some of the other ones, it's kind of, as you get a new system, they're all combined. So you kind of get new functionality whether you want it or not, essentially.
Got it. Thanks, Dennis.
I have a couple questions. I just want to understand this. If my seatmates want to put this off for a couple weeks, that's fine with me. But number one, is there a deadline in order that we're facing to make a decision? But number two, I want to understand the $390,000 coming from the IT reserves. That's been paid into for, I would think, a substantial amount of time, Robin or Dennis. How long has that been paid into? The reserve fund.
We've been paying into that fund for at least 2 years now.
Okay. And 80,000.
I'm sorry, it actually started in 2017.
Please enter your password.
Okay. And the 80,000 from the Trial Court Improvement Fund.
The password you have entered is invalid. Please try again. You are now a leader. Please record your
Sorry,
name
we needed
after
to set up the
tone.
conference call.
Press pound when you are finished. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So, but my question is then, the remainder of that, from the 390 and the 80,000, the remainder is gonna come from, the different stakeholders paid over a 5-year period? Is that correct?
It'll be built in the rates and collected over time.
Okay. And so is there a deadline in order for us to make this decision that's looming?
Dennis, do you have a offer from the vendor that is time bound?
I do not know when the current quote expires. I know we've been working pretty well with the vendor, so I can go look at that if we have a hard deadline on when the quote expires. I would probably be more concerned with some of that equipment failing before we're able to get this project going. I think that'd probably be and that's, I don't have a specific date. It's kind of whenever it goes down.
All right. Well, I appreciate your honesty, Dennis. And it's something that we really need, but I understand the conveyor belt simile as well. Any other comments or questions from my seatmates? Go ahead, Gary.
I guess, following up on what Commissioner Mentzer brought up, those issues, my concern is that we made this decision back before the situation we're in today. I don't know exactly if that decision had everything was must, or if there was a lot of nice stuff put in there as well that would be nice to have and make us, make life a little easier for some. I don't know the answer to that. And I'd like to make sure that we don't have any excessive capital outlay, very much like Commissioner Mentzer said about Lacey, putting a hold on it. And I'm all for possibly fixing a deficiency so that we can continue to use it. But I'd like to know the difference between the must and the nice on what this expenditure would do. And I guess over the next couple of weeks, maybe we could be briefed up on that particular issue. I don't feel comfortable moving ahead with it right now.
So it can sit for a week or two. From what I haven't heard any deadline yet. Time-bound issue, as Robin put it. And with over 50% of it being paid for by reserves and the trial court improvement fund, my concern is, as Dennis stated, the system that has failed or failing, and we're going to be, the courts are very dependent on on this video, the video court process, and it's going to be it's going to be even more leaned on heavily over the next probably year or so at least. So I feel time bound, not because of the bid or the vendor. I feel time bound because if it fails, we're really up a creek. Because it's mandatory. So that's where if we can wait a week or two, I'm okay with that.
So I will hold this item, and what I will probably do, work with Dennis to bring a conversation with you next Tuesday morning related to all the IT projects, where they are, what perhaps their priority will be, for you to have a more comprehensive picture of all the items that might be coming before you.
Okay. Dennis, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, item number 3.
Item number 3, this is related to an item that you reviewed last week where the federal government provided additional grant money to continue with the process of the Habitat Conservation Plan, the HCP. So this particular item for your consideration is to amend a contract with the Institute of Applied Ecology, that's the consultant, to add $44,312 to their contract for a maximum consideration of $457,000. And then again, that is an attempt to continue the development of the HCP. And I believe Chris Shapret is online if you have any questions.
Who is?
Chris?
Okay, Chris. Go ahead, Chris.
So can you hear me all?
Yep.
Great. So as Romero stated, this is a funding extension for the current contract with Applied Institute for Applied Ecology. This will bring us over the hump for the draft HCP. This money was developed with the scope of work based on the comments received from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. And we believe we can finish the HCP with these dollars. These dollars are all supported and funded under the grants that we have under Section 6.
Okay. Questions, Commissioner Minster, anything? Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, I'm just curious, is this a bid issue or is this a continuation of a bid to this applied ecology group?
It is an amendment to the current contract, so it's not a bid issue.
And this is pass-through money from the federal government, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
Is that it, Gary?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Chris, thank you very much.
I tell you what, Commissioner, can you hear me there, Hutch?
Yeah.
Is this something that we went over last week?
No, you went over accepting the grant, so we're reviewing the items for next week. So this is amending a contract.
Okay, so we're not gonna make this motion right now
No,
and move
no,
forward,
sir.
because you have
It's next week.
you have a motion here, and that's what I was worried about. So, okay,
It's next week. We're reviewing the items for.
thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chris. Item number 4.
So the next three items are related to the same issue, the same item. And this is related to the Highway Safety Improvement Program the Public Works would like to implement in 2020. And this is, we're securing a grant from the federal government of just about $1.2 million to provide a yearly traffic safety features. Some of the features that you will see on this will be removing and replacing over 8,000 of substandard guardrail along Little Rock Road and Waddell Creek Road. Also, we'll be installing over 3,000 linear feet of new guardrail along Tunnel Road. And also, we'll be installing over 10 miles of a center line and shoulder rumble strips on Vale Road and Rainier Road. Those are the main three elements of this project. So I figured this is going to be an interesting conversation as we move along. But again, items 4, 5, and 6 for you consideration next week are related to this project. Item 4 is for you to authorize to be part of the 2020 annual road program. Item 5 is to authorize the director to sign a local agency agreement to secure the $1,197,000 in federal money. And item 6 is to authorize the Public Works Department for conduct the seal bids. So 4, 5, and 6 are related to this project, to this issue. And I believe staff is online to answer any questions related to rumble strips.
All right. Well, I'll start off with, as in music, you can't have enough cowbell. And in the county, we can't have enough rumble strips, Gary. Commissioner Edwards, go ahead. You had your hand up.
Well, are we doing any match money towards any of these projects?
Yes, sir.
And how much?
It's $138,000 coming from the road fund.
Okay. Is there some requirement that we do these rumble things that aggravate a lot of citizens? I'd like to make sure that there's not a rumble strip within 1,000 feet of anybody's house. Because what you're doing is aggravating a lot of citizens out there that feel these are an absolute waste of money. And so somehow, I don't want to expend any Thurston County tax dollars on things the public doesn't like.
So let me address that. The $138,000 from the county road fund is a requirement for the grant. That has to be a match. Regardless of how much money we use from the federal government, always have to be a match. So Related to the rumble strips, I respectfully disagree. I know there is a noise nuisance, but I believe there is a low investment with a high return to that investment in terms of safety measure. Because the reason as to why we have rumble strips both on the center line as well on the shoulder, especially on the rural areas of the county, is when individuals perhaps veer off of the travel lane, they have an awareness as to how they can come back into the travel lane. So certainly that is my perspective, my humble perspective from a professional point of view, but obviously the board is in a position to direct the staff as to how we can utilize this money. Maybe who is from Public Works? Brian and Matt Anselman are available to answer additional questions.
Well, who's there or who's talking? I can't.
David Chain here. I could answer a few questions.
Okay, I know in the past, we've actually removed rumble strips or poured epoxy in those rumble strips in the past because of noise aggravation to the community. So I hate to spend money to put something in place that the community doesn't like just because it's a requirement. I would much rather see fog lines be applied to all of our rural roads so that self-driving vehicles of the future might be able to get a benefit from that. And I think that'd be a better safety move than rumble strips. So does it matter that we do, is there an actual verbiage in there that says we have to do rumble strips? We can't take other measures for safety?
Go ahead, David, answer that question as well as is it true we filled these things up in other areas and why'd we do that? And any science behind safety or proof that it's a safety issue?
So there are areas that we have filled in these rumble strips, and a lot of that was because of the proximity to homes. With this project, we made an effort to stay away from homes, at least 500 feet from any homes that were nearby. Besides that, it's a tried and true method of preventing run off the road collisions, and WashDOT implements it all over the state with their program. Matt can answer any questions on specific studies, maybe. He's part of our traffic division, so he can answer any further questions on where exactly we fill those in.
So,
but before you leave, I'm sure NHTSA has some data, but the 500 feet that we've been kind of trying to adhere to or whatever from homes, is that just kind of a thumbnail, or are we just doing it? Is it an ordinance? Is that codified somewhere?
I believe that's an ordinance. That's the rule of thumb that we've been going off of. I'll have to do some research to see exactly which ordinance that is.
Okay. So go ahead, Matt. I think I cut you off.
Oh, no, good morning. So the reason why we do rumble strips is because that's a low cost improvement to address run off the road collisions without rebuilding the road and adding 6 to 8 foot shoulders. I will say that staff has gone out there and reviewed all these locations to make sure that homes are 500 feet or more away from these rumble strips. The 500 feet is actually a suggestion from WashDOT analysis.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary.
Is there any requirement that these safety measures actually be rumble strips versus, for an example, I'm just using this as an example, but fog lines that are quite reflective and will be beneficial for autonomous vehicles in the future. I see that as an issue, but possibly stop sign ahead signs that would allow the public to know there's a stop sign coming up. I just don't see that these are everything they're cracked up to be. I see these being developed by city dwellers that want to place aggravation amongst rural America because they don't want rural America to even exist. They want people, under the Growth Management Act, it's pretty simple to see. The preference is to force the population to live in the urban core and discourage the population from living in rural America. I believe with this pandemic, we're going to see a change in philosophy from citizens where many folks are now able, we've shown that it's very possible to be very effective in working from home. I think it's gonna allow people to live in rural America that do not want to live in that condensed area. So I just want to plan for the future. I'd rather have other types of safety events. And if it's not specifically spelled out in the grant that they need to be rumble strips, why can't we have other safety measures?
All right, Commissioner Menser, anything, any thoughts? Or questions?
I didn't really hear the answer as to whether or not we're required to do rumble strips, and I'm not married to rumble strips. I am married to the idea that we take our taxpayer dollar and leverage it 10-to-1 to get highway safety improvements around the county. So I want to make sure we participate in this program and do these projects. And I'm comfortable with what staff has explained, that the state has thought through this and come up with the 500-foot rule of thumb. I haven't had anybody complain to me about rumble strips, particularly in my district, but I'm not discounting what Commissioner Edwards is saying, but if there's an alternative, I'm happy to consider it, but I want to make sure that we move forward on this.
If I may, before Matt answers the question, what is a requirement of the grant, and I think that's related to the plan that was submitted to DOT, but related to the fog line, we install fog line with or without rumble strips, and that is part of the striping program that we do on a yearly basis. And maybe Matt can elaborate what the striping program we have and how long a striping a fog line lasts before we have to restripe that again.
So we're actually gearing up right now to start next week our annual striping program. We actually restripe all of our county roads each year, and that's just because the reflectivity of the paint, it really wears off, and the effectiveness of the striping really isn't much good after a year.
Which include fog lines.
Which includes fog lines and center lines. And all of the other pavement markers, such as your arrows and your stop bars, which are actually of plastic, we can usually get 3 to 4 years out of those as well.
I still didn't hear if there's a requirement that it be rumble strips.
I will take that one on. So when we request funding from the Washington State Department and the local programs division specifically, our application we turned in was actually for rumble strips. So if we weren't to do rumble strips, we would have to go back to local programs and request to do some other low-cost improvement to address run off the road or crossing center line collisions. Whether that's additional guardrail, or it's some other low-cost improvements to address run off the road, or shoulder widening. But like I mentioned, the thing about rumble strips, and I thought Commissioner Menser said it well, is that you get a lot more bang for your buck with rumble strips than you would with isolated road widening project.
So with that, any other questions, Ty?
No.
Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and keep this. We're not looking for any more information. We have all the questions answered at this point.
Yeah, unless you have additional information for us, what I'm hearing is I'll bring those items 4, 5, and 6 next week for your final consideration, if that is how the board would like to proceed.
I would.
Yep.
Gary?
No, I'm not in favor of it.
Okay. So item number 7.
Yeah, I'm just making it up.
Yeah, I get it.
Item number 7 is the Department of Public Works is requesting for you to authorize going to seal the process to replace the Reed Road Bridge. And this is a cost of $1,740,000, which is $1,505,000 is coming from the Federal Highway Administration. That is the Bridge Replacement Advisory Committee, also known as BRAC. And there is a match of $234,900 comes from the county road fund. And this is the way this bridge qualified for the BRAC funding is it was determined that this bridge is structurally deficient. So it needs to be replaced. Unless you have any questions, the staff is ready to answer questions.
Go ahead, Gary.
How did we determine that this bridge is the priority bridge? Because it's my understanding many of the bridges in the county are structurally deficient.
There is the county engineer provides to the board a yearly bridge report in which all the priorities are outlined in there, but Matt or Brian can elaborate on that. So it's a requirement to provide a bridge report in which the priorities are stated in there. Go ahead.
So each year, or actually I should say, every 2 years, county staff evaluates the conditions of over 130 bridges throughout the county. And based upon those appraisals of the bridges, currently there's 2 bridges in the county that are considered structurally deficient. The Reeder Road Bridge is actually the only bridge that meets the criteria for the BRAC funding. It's the only one that meets the criteria to receive this type of federal funding.
Okay, I guess I do have a follow-up then. Matt, so what you're saying is we only have 2 bridges out of the 130 that are structurally challenged or deficient, whatever you want to call it?
The county has a lot of bridges that are too narrow, or they don't meet the criteria for the guardrail requirements. But as far as carrying the load capacity that they're supposed to be able to carry, there's only 2 in the county right now.
Matt, can you briefly elaborate what the difference is structurally deficient and functionally obsolete?
Yeah, so structurally deficient basically means there's a component on that bridge that has failed, essentially. Obsolete means that the bridge it's too narrow. Maybe current design standards say the bridge is supposed to be 40 feet wide, but it's only 20 feet wide. A good example of that is we have a lot of bridges on Old Highway 99 that the shoulders before and after the bridge are a lot wider than the actual bridge is. So it's an actual choking point. So even though the bridge is structurally sound, it isn't wide enough. So that's what we call it obsolete.
Functionally obsolete, yeah. And also the criteria in which the department goes to determine whether it's structurally deficient or functionally obsolete, that's a criteria mandated by the federal government. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And as a result of the federal criteria, there is only a specific bridges, in this case is the Reeder Road, that meets the Federal Highway Administration criteria to fund it.
That is correct.
Commissioner Menser? Okay, go ahead, Gary.
What's the traffic situation on that bridge, on the Reeder Bridge, for an example? I mean, serving a lot of properties, through traffic, dead-end traffic, logging traffic. What's the functionality of that bridge?
It's predominantly agricultural and logging traffic. There's actually no residential homes on the other side of the bridge.
Anything further?
Okay, yeah, is that bridge gonna cave in under some of the logging traffic or something? Is that what the concern is here?
The bridge is actually constructed of an old rail car, and the steel has actually twisted underneath, and there's no foundations. The foundations are actually a bunch of concrete rubble and guardrail posts that were pulled out of the ground a long time ago, and they set the bridge right on top of them. I'd love to give you a tour.
Well, I'm sure the bridge looks a bit shaky. I'm aware of that, but I'm just trying to balance out the usability by the public versus could it just keep going? I know where there's a lot of railroad car bridges, and they seem to just function just fine almost forever until the metal rusts away, but.
Okay. So,
okay.
thumbs up or thumbs down to move on with this project?
Yeah, so I'll bring this item for next week.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And number 8, when you're ready, Romero.
Number 8, for your consideration is to authorize the director to sign a local agency agreement with the federal, with the state to receive $150,000 of federal funding to conduct a trail study in the Rochester Grand Mountain area.
And who do we have on the line with us to answer questions?
Yeah, you get to talk to me again.
Hey, I was at the Rochester Grand Mound open house a month ago or longer. And is this a trail that would connect, that's going to go through properties, farmland and such?
So that would be part of it. And what we've heard a lot from South County is that the communities of Rochester, Grand Mound, and then the Shalis Tribal Reservation, there's really no walking routes or what they call active routes, bicycles or pedestrian routes between those communities besides US 12. And for obvious reasons, nobody wants to bike or walk in between these communities along US 12. So what this study will be doing is looking at different alternatives to safely get people safely connected between these communities.
Yeah, and you were out there, and a couple of the property owners that this trail could potentially bifurcate their property. It's a dairy farm, I believe, and berry farms. And they were suggesting rather than do that, put the trail adjacent to, not onto, but adjacent to the highway. So all of those options will be looked into, Matt?
Yeah, so I would say we're not locked into that's why we're doing alternative analysis at this point, is we're trying to balance all of those impacts. And so one may be keeping it closer to US 12, another might be a more rural or through fields like you were mentioning. But I would say at this point, we're not locked into any certain alternative.
Well, you're right. They're in desperate need of trailing, safe places to walk and bike. So it's just a matter of location. And though it might only impact a few, it impacts them very personally on their property. Anyway, so any questions from my seatmates or comments?
Pass-through funding, I guess, is my concern. It's all pass-through, not taken out of our road fund. Right?
Yeah, however, there is a required match. Sorry, I failed to mention that.
Okay, you didn't mention that.
Yeah, sorry. There is a required match of 23,000, and that's the normal match that we need to obligate when we receive federal funding. So, and the $23,410 of match will come from the road fund.
Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Ty, anything?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Romero. Number 9, an ILA for distribution and use of reclaimed water.
Yeah, I believe this is an item familiar to Commissioner Mensah, since he is part of the law board. And this is an interlocal agreement between LOT and all the jurisdictions as to how we're going to be managing, how LOT is going to be managing reclaimed water, and how perhaps the opportunity the county may have through this agreement. They could request a share of the reclaimed water in the future. And again, this is, I don't know if Art is not here, but so let me walk you through what this interlocal agreement will do in general terms. The general agreement will provide for the legal and historical context that defines the goals and roles and responsibilities for LOT partners, as well as the general terms for the agreement related to reclaimed water. Also outlines the methodology describing the mechanism by which each of the partners can be assured and share of the reclaimed water resource. It recognizes that while law is and the 3 cities distribute and use all the reclaimed water, Thurston County through this agreement could open up the door to request for use of this reclaimed water. Establishes the quantity of reclaimed water by jurisdiction will receive, and also being revised the capacity in which LOT has these 2 facilities. I think they have 2 reservoirs where they use reclaimed water, one of which I believe is on the Hawkesbury area. And also, it really includes a technical memorandum that outlines the rationale in terms of how the reclaimed water should be used and distributed among jurisdictions. That's in general terms what this interlocal agreement does. And I know that probably Art had to go to a different appointment. And I can certainly take any questions at this point. If I don't have the answers to those questions, I will certainly bring those answers to you next week.
Mr. Mensah.
Yes, so we worked on these few months ago. It feels like a year or more ago. The only thing that I can really add is that the original drafts, the Thurston County doesn't get or use the reclaimed water at this point, but our staff was diligent about making sure that there was appropriate language that would give us the lever to open up the discussion and give us a chance to make a claim or a negotiation. And so we worked on that language, proposed it, and I don't remember specifically how it's stated, but I know that I was comfortable and our staff was comfortable. We got concession from the other lot partners to add in some flexibility that would give us the chance to open that negotiation if and when the circumstances became appropriate to do so. That's about all I can tell you. Art had the specifics on that. If there's more detailed questions, we should save them for him.
Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
I might add, I was at the supermarket, grocery store last evening, or yesterday afternoon, real quick hit and run. And some guy with gray hair and a mask inside, and I'm wearing a mask. And he starts chatting me up, saying, hey, you're looking good, nice to see you. It took me a while before I figured out it was Michael Strube from Lot. He looks different with a mask. Anyway, I'm okay with that too then.
Okay, so I will bring this item for your consideration next week. Thank you.
Yep. So we don't have proclamations or awards other than that, the one proclamation for National Emergency Medical Services Week. No advisory boards or commissions, no legislative update. I'd like to move into the PIO check-in, and I know B-Man is here, Brian, and I'll wait for him to come out of the booth.
Good morning, Commissioner. It's Brian. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners and everyone on the line. Just a few quick updates. District Court is now live streaming court proceedings. Information on where to find the court calendar and the YouTube channel information is available on our website. at thurstoncountylaw.gov. And our office is continuing to work with public health and social services to provide information to our community on COVID-19. The latest information about numbers of confirmed cases is also available on our website at thurstoncountylaw.gov. There, people can also access our COVID-19 webpage, resources for businesses and workers, and much more. We also released a news story yesterday morning about the county's response to homelessness during the COVID-19 pandemic. That story is available on our county news page, which is accessible from our homepage. And then last week, we also released a news story about how the prosecuting attorney's office advocate team is supporting victims during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll just provide a quote from one of the people that were quoted in that story. As a senior advocate, and she says, victims of domestic violence and child abuse are at heightened risk during this health crisis, as stay-at-home orders and school closures isolate them even more. But help is available. Those resources are accessible at the Family Support Center of South Sound at 360-754-9297, and the Safe Place 24-hour helpline at 360-754-6300. And additional information for victims can also be found on the Thurston County Prosecuting Attorney's Office website. And finally, we are piloting a new weekly newsletter through July 31st. 2 issues have been released so far, with a third scheduled for release this Friday. People can access and subscribe to that newsletter on our county news page. And all a subscription means is that newsletter will be sent to your email address of choice that you use when you register each week. And the results of the newsletter so far have been positive.
Have been what?
Have been positive. It's been good.
Oh, good.
It's been well received.
That's not the Insider, though. It's different.
No, this is an external newsletter we send out weekly to a listserv, so people can go onto our page, put in their email address, and we send it directly to them.
Okay. Very good. Any questions or comments, Gary, for Brian?
No, sir.
Commissioner Minster, Ty, anything?
No.
Let me see. And are we still, Commissioner Edwards and Minster and I are scheduling for the next TCM stuff that we do?
We've suspended production of Thurston County Connection, but we do have a Thurston County update option. So that's what we did with you, Commissioner Hutchings, for the farmers market. So if any commissioner wants to do a video similar to that, that is certainly available to them. But in terms of our monthly television show, that's suspended right now.
Okay. Thank you. And I just have to recognize that Megan Porter has been absent these meetings. I'll get you a second, Romero. Because she's been assigned to the ECC and EOC, and you folks are working your tails off, and I greatly appreciate all that you do. Romero.
Yeah, related to this item, there is a, you may recall TC Media was given a notice by Comcast. They need to vacate their current space, and that is located on the west side of Olympia. And so there is a series of strategies. We had a meeting yesterday with the city managers as to how we're going to be consolidating, developing a consolidated suggestion to each of the elected councils and commissioners related to how we're going to be managing this particular issue. There is a absent of Comcast because right now they only charge $1 per year for TC Media to utilize that space. That is no longer going to be available to TC Media. So then we're going to be facing with how we're going to be overcome this lease issue, and at the same time we're negotiating a franchise agreement with Comcast, and that will take us for the next 10 years. So there's a lot of complexities with this issue, and I'd just like to bring this to your attention. Nothing for you to do at this point. It's just for you to start being aware these items are gonna be coming before you with more detail as soon as we have a consolidated proposal for you.
Okay. Gary, go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess, as we move forward with that, issue, considering they're gonna not be located where they are now, I would like to just remind folks that the West Side Mall is faced with problems. I still think it's a good location for a lot of things, and I would certainly, if the county has any say about that, if we do go out for leasing space, on the west side is much more preferably something similar to the West Side Mall, for an example, versus even looking downtown. I can't find anybody that wants to go downtown anymore. The downtown that I knew for years and years and years as a resident here in Thurston County has basically been decimated. And so let's not waste any time thinking about going downtown to where the citizenry does not want to go anymore until that whole situation is fixed down there.
And perhaps one of the options the TC Media may have is to remain on the same location. But the question is where the money is going to come from for the lease. And that is really the question as to how we're going to be bringing those options before you, considering the franchise agreement with Comcast and the business model, as you can all understand, is going to change for Comcast. And as a result, our PEG fees are going to be reduced in the future. So really, the conversation is not going to be just in terms as to how we're going to be supporting a lease from TC Media. The conversation perhaps will be broader as to how we're going to be managing particularly the PEG, the public access, that's the P on the PEG, the educational component, that's the E on the PEG, and the G, which is the government, all your Board of County Commissioners meetings, not just now, but perhaps in the future. And that is really is the broader conversation we're going to be bringing before you, because the lease aspect is just one element of that. But I think the conversation should be broader. And again, I just want to bring this matter to your attention because there is a lot of conversation that is going on the many different jurisdictions. And I just want you to be aware what the conversation is leading to. And at this point, I really don't have a formal proposal before you. And again, yesterday I had the conversation with the city managers, and hopefully we can have a consolidated proposal that will be presented to the city councils as well as the Board of County Commissioners.
Okay, Robin? Oh, you popped up, so I figured you had something to say. All right. Anything further, Commissioner Edwards?
No, sir.
Or Commissioner Menser? Okay. I just want to know one more sentence for Megan Porter and for Brian Dominique for all the PIOing that they're doing, especially with this COVID stuff.
PIOing.
Exceptional job. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Before we get into, there's no legislative update, before we get into the our legislative piece, I just want to recognize that it was in the paper that Lacey Police Chief Ken Stemko is retiring due to personal health issues. And I personally, I would imagine my seatmates would do the same, but wish him the absolute best for himself and his family. It'll be a loss for Lacey, but they're positioned pretty well now with an interim chief. All right, with that, we're going to move into the public hearing decisions now. Item number 1.
Yeah, as a framework for the next few items, those items you reviewed last week. And I don't have any pending questions, so I just going to frame each of the items, and then I will recommend for you to take a formal action on moving forward. So item number 1 and item number 5 are related to authorize the county treasurer to enter into a private negotiations with the Nisqually tribe for tax title properties. we gave you a perspective last week with Jeff Cadman on the meeting as to how those properties became part of a tax title and long history. I'll be more than happy to give you the background on that. Or you want me just to move forward on the items?
Well, one question that Commissioner Edwards has was giving up more time for people that might be impacted by this to weigh in. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I would be content doing them all at once, but I suppose we can't do that. And I think all my questions have been answered, but for the viewing public out there, I'd just like to have them know, it's my understanding that each of these properties, not only were lost to the county tax base years and years ago, but they're on tribal reservation land, I believe. So this makes perfect sense after this has all been reviewed to get this done. And I want to commend our county treasurer, Jeff Gadman, about doing all the work that went into this.
Commissioner Minster, anything?
So you're going to put me to work here with each one a separate item?
Yeah. So.
I tried to get you out of it.
I appreciate that.
So item number 1 is parcel number 21834110000. And this is an eighth of 3,969 parcel. The assessed value of this property is $1,400. The proposed sale of this property is $763.50. And also the potential loss of a property tax, considering that it will go to the Nisqually tribe and it will become part of their trust land. It will be $1.54 a year.
All right. Is there a motion?
I move to authorize the Thurston County Treasurer's Office to sell property number 21834110000 via private negotiation per RCW 3635-120, 3635-130, 3635-150, and County Code 2.105.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the sale of tax title property 21834110000. Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that carries. Thank you. Number 2.
Number 2, this is a tax title property number 21834420200. This property is one of 840 parcel. And the assessed value of this property is $1,400. The proposed sale of this property is $763.50. That includes all the fees. And the potential loss in property taxes to the general fund will be $1.54
Per year.
per year.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Nope. Any motion?
I move to authorize Thurston County Treasurer's Office to sell property number 21835420200 via private negotiation per RCW 3635-120, 3635-130, 3635-150, and County Code 2.105.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to authorize the sale of tax title property number 21835420200. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Number 3.
Item number 3 is tax title property number 21835230100. And this property is an eighth of 3,669 parcel. The assessed value of this property is $2,900. The proposed sale price is $763.50, including all the fees. And in this case, the potential loss in revenue and property taxes to the general fund on a yearly basis is $3.20.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to authorize the Thurston County Treasurer's Office to sell property number 21835230100 via private negotiation per RCW 3635-120, 3635-130, 3635-150, and County Code 2.105.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to authorize the sale of tax title property number 21835230100. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Number 4.
Item number 4 is related to a tax title property number 2183411010. And this is an eighth of 3,969th parcel. And the assessed value is $1,400. The proposed sale price is $763.50. And the potential loss in revenue to the general funds as a result of the property taxes will be $1.54 per year.
I move to authorize Thurston County Treasurer's Office to sell property number 21834110100 via private negotiation per RCW 3635-120, 3635-130, 3635-150, and County Code 2.105.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the sale of tax title property number 21834110100. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. And number 5.
No, item number 5 is related to tax title property number 21835440200. This property is a 13th of 810 parcel. The assessed value for this property is $2,200. The proposed sale price for the municipal tribe is $763.50. And the potential loss in revenue related to the property tax associated with the sale will be approximately $2.42 per year.
Move to authorize Thurston County Treasurer's Office to sell property number 21835440200 via private negotiation per RCW 3635-120, 3635-130, 3635-150, and County Code 2.105.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to authorize the sale of tax title property number 21835440200. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that motion carries. Good job, Ty. Number 6.
Is for your consideration is the voucher list approval for the week of April 13, 2020 for a combined amount of $1,293.28. This item was for your consideration last week. I believe Commissioner Menser had a couple clarifying questions, and I believe Robin has answered those questions directed to Commissioner Menser. So, not yet? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have the answers here. So Commissioner Menser asked about payments for 2 software items. The first is Paradigm. The Paradigm software is a program that collects data for regulatory reporting and invoicing at the work, and it's based on the weight of the scales. So it's necessary to meet regulatory rules. And the second one was Tech Power Solution Payment. That is for software that supports our virtual servers. We have over 175 servers that are virtual. That saves us money from having to buy and house hardware servers, actual physical servers. So that's actually saved us a lot of money, and it is now critical to the operation of the county-wide systems.
Thanks, Robin. I also had a question about the one of the consultants, but I was able to track down the answer to that through Carrie and Thomasina. So it was consultant services for family court. So I guess, are you ready for a motion, Mr. Chair?
I am. Gary, do you have any questions on the voucher list?
No, I don't.
Because mine weren't answered. Okay, go ahead for the motion.
I'll move to approve the voucher list for the week of April 13, 2020 for a combined amount of $1,002,193.28.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the voucher list. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Number 7.
Yeah, this item for your consideration is to award the contract to replace the substructure of the Deschutes River trestle project located along the Chehalis Western, I believe it's the Tenino Yelm Trail. On April 9th, 2020, the county received 9 bids, and the low bid was awarded to a Masana, that will be M-A-S-S-A-N-A, not to be confused with Mazama. Construction Incorporated from Gary Harbor, the low bid was $286,470. And the department is requesting for you to authorize an additional 10% to cover any unexpected overruns during construction for a total award of $315,117. The funding source for this particular project is coming from the Real Estate Excise Tax 2, REIT 2, and this has already been included on the 2020 budget.
Any questions?
No, sir.
Nothing from Commissioner Menser? Nothing?
Nope.
Okay. Ready for a motion.
Move to award the contract for the Thurston County Public Works Deschutes River Trestle Substructure Project, County Project 51092, to Masana Construction, Inc. for a total amount of $286,470, and to authorize the Director of Public Works to execute the contract and any change orders for the project due to unforeseen circumstances only, not for changes in scope, up to 10% of the contract, $28,647, or an aggregate of $315,117.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to award contract award for the Thurston County Public Works Deschutes River Trestle Substructure. Any further discussion on that issue?
No, sir.
No? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, the motion carries. Number 8.
Item number 8, this item was not part of your review of last week. However, the board has been working on this item for the last couple of months, if not more. This is just for you to officially approve the 2020-2021 Comprehensive Plan Amendment docket, as well as the 2020-2021 official docket for the Development Code Amendment. I can probably walk you through some of the items included in that. You had a conversation last week, and that is the reason why this item is in here. I believe Jennifer Davis is also online to answer any particular questions. And again, this is just the formal approval of those 2 dockets. So related to what are the next steps on this, after you consider approving those the 2 dockets, staff will come back on a formal briefing with you to start establishing priorities among the different items that you decided to include on those dockets, as well as the implementation methods that you may want to consider, including perhaps options on a third-party contribution.
Well, I'm ready to move ahead, but I'm going to ask my seatmates if they have any questions that they need answered.
I don't have any questions. I think we've all discussed this over the last month or so extensively, even though we might have reached different conclusions and voted a little differently on some of the issues. I think as a whole, we've finished the process, and I guess now we just move forward with it to make it officially legal for the state.
Well said, Commissioner. Anything, Ty?
No, yeah, there were 40 different decisions wrapped into this item. We didn't all agree on every single one, but I counted it up, and I was only outvoted 5 times out of 40, so that's not too bad. So 35 points of agreement, and I think on the big ones we did agree. So,
did you have the percentages for the other 2 commissioners?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm ready for a motion then.
Okay, I move to approve the 2020 2020/2021 official docket of comprehensive plan amendments and the 2020/2021 official docket of development code amendments.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to the official docket of the comprehensive plan and development code amendments for approval. Any discussion? Oh, I would just add that even though in 90 seconds we're approving this and there were 40 different items, this was very intense and comprehensive and great feedback from the community, and also very good dialogue and discussion and debate among the commissioners. So I'm happy getting this done. It just seems so quickly that we make the motion, second vote, and it's over. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That motion carries. And number 9.
Number 9, you did review this item last week, commissioners, and this is to accept a grant from the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and this is that's an agreement with the state wildlife, but this grant is coming from the federal government to continue the development of the habitat conservation plan, and that is related to the item that you just reviewed early this morning. In this contract agreement allows to access an additional $609,741 from the federal government. It does require a match of $226,580, but that match will be an in-kind services, meaning that will be the staff time that will be spent in the development of the HCP. With the understanding that hopefully we can get to a point that the new draft will be accepted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and we can continue with the public review related to the need process, and that will be the next steps. I believe Commissioner Hutchins participated on a kickoff meeting to finalize this final draft, hopefully. And Commissioner Hutchins stated that perhaps they would like to see a finalized final draft be submitted to U.S. Fish and Wildlife for the final acceptance of this draft by the end of June 2020.
Got it. Any questions? Commissioner Edwards.
For the county manager, you made mention that we discussed that earlier today.
Yeah, if you go back, and this is related to the item earlier today, you will be increasing the contract with the Institute of Applied Ecology. That will be item number 3.
Number 3.
Right.
So this is the money that we received from the federal government, and the item that you will be considering formal action to increase that contract with that consultant. And those items are related to each other.
But I thought being we were discussing that today, we wouldn't be voting on it until next week.
No, it's 2 different items.
Okay, on this one.
This is accepting the grant.
Okay.
And the item that you will be considering next week is to amend the contract with the consultant.
So now,
We didn't vote on the item number 3.
no. And we're just moving now to accept money.
That's correct.
No expenditure. Now, normally, would we also discuss this one and then vote on it next week, or what?
No, you discussed this last week.
Okay, so we did cover most of this last week,
Yeah, you covered this item last week.
even though we didn't cover all the facts that were on 3.
No, it's sequential.
Okay,
It's
good enough.
sequential. We
Okay.
first we received the grant, and then we expended.
Yeah, hard to vote against accepting money. Okay, good enough.
Anything, Commissioner Minster?
Well, Ramiro was making reference to a request from U.S. Fish and Wildlife about a final draft. Is that an update of some kind that we haven't heard before?
No, it was I think Commissioner Hutchins gave you an update on the kickoff meeting they had, I believe, 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, about a month ago.
County staff as well as the U.S. Fish and Wildlife staff, I had a kickoff meeting as to how some of their questions will be addressed on the final draft. And I believe Commissioner Hutchins set an expectation at that time. We would like to see the final draft being done by June 30th, 2020.
Expectation for our staff or for who?
Expectation for everyone to finalize the draft.
For everybody to have it done and in their hands
Yeah.
for review.
And
In talking with Brad Thompson and even Jennifer Davis, it sounds like that's a doable event now. It's doable, and we're on track to do that. Final draft in.
Very good. Okay. With that, I'll make a motion if it's ready for that. I move to approve Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife Agreement number 19-14875 to fund the Thurston Prairie Habitat Conservation Plan Phase 4 for a maximum compensation amount of $609,741 with a county match of $226,580 for a total of $836,321 for the period of November 1st, 2019 to October 31st, 2022, and authorize the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development to sign this agreement and future amendments that do not change the approved duration or increase the dollar amount by more than 10%.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife Grant Agreement number 19-14875, the Thurston Prairie Habitat Conservation Plan Phase 4 grant. Any further discussion?
Yes, just
Go ahead.
one other thing. Our match with this, is that, it's not a financial match, but it's a work match?
In-kind services. That will
In-kind
be-
services? So those are people that are doing work here anyway that are county employees?
Yeah, that will be.
And that'll be our portion of that.
That is correct, and Jennifer can correct me if I'm off on that one. But that is the intent, is an in-kind match based on the
Let me go to-
service that we provide.
I'll go to Robin.
Wait,
Hertzberg.
Robin's shaking her head.
So in kind is only if we're obtaining services or goods that the county does not pay for from an external third party. If we're paying county employees and that's what we're counting, then it is cash match.
Okay.
Now,
Okay,
Jennifer,
good.
do you have anything to add?
No, what she said.
Okay.
It is not in kind.
Okay. Anything else, Commissioner Edwards?
Well, I guess then, does that give us any leeway on that expenditure? That's what I'm wondering about.
No, we have to come up with the match. We can count the match as the time that the county staff spend. That's match. It's just not in-kind match.
So this is all part and parcel of the ongoing expenditure that we've been involved with, since, I guess the county's been involved with it since about 2013, somewhere in there on this, the whole endangered species activity in the Mazama pocket gopher specifically, is that right?
Yes, and also is two part of this expenditures. This one is to fund the additional support from the consultant. The item is going to be for your consideration next week. But also, I believe is stated to fund the environmental review process, which is coming up. Is that correct, Jennifer?
Yes, that's correct. Phase 4, which is this grant, is focused on implementation. So we are continuing work to get to the revised draft by June 30th, and then we move into implementation phase and environmental review and public outreach and all that good stuff with this fund.
So I just have a follow-up comment. I mean, we talk about legislation, the creation of legislation. It's like making sausage. It doesn't always look pleasant, but it's good to get it done with, I guess. But in this case, it's a good example for the citizens of the bureaucratic process that it takes to meet regulatory demands placed on us at all different levels. This one happens to be a federal level, but just an example of the frustrations. I know individuals like Mr. Tibetan had to suffer through this for years and years, and finally coming to a conclusion so his family could build. I just voice the frustration that I hear from the public on a daily basis on this topic. So hopefully we'll be able to come to some conclusion here before too long.
So I see Josh Cummings has popped up on the screen, and in my notes is to thank Josh and Jennifer and the staff for their continued in-depth work on this project over the years. Thank you very much. So Josh, go ahead. You have something to add?
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you, Commissioner Hutchings. And I just wanted to kind of echo Commissioner Edwards' statement in terms of frustration from the citizens. We definitely recognize that. And that is why I just really appreciate the hard work of our staff, Jennifer Davis and Chris Chapeau, as well as the great coordination with HCP. What you're experiencing now and making these decisions is moving the ball forward for our citizens. So just recognizing this is what progress looks like, and whether it's sausage or formal documents, this is what it is. So thank you very much for your support, commissioners.
And I also want to mention Curtis, U.S. Fish. I'm not kidding you. You folks have been tirelessly working on this, and I think it's more akin to spam than a sausage. So with that, is there Commissioner Menser, did you have any comments or just a motion?
I believe the motion was stated.
Yeah. Well, then let's get on with it. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. That motion carries.
Do we have a second to the motion?
I believe it was seconded, and then the Commissioner
Then we went into discussion.
entertained discussion.
Okay, great. Yep.
All right, so that takes us to commissioner items. There's only 3, but they're going to be, they're not quick, they're lengthy. I'm looking at all the head shakes here. That'll be Ramiro, Gary, and Ty. Does anybody need a break or press on?
We can press on.
Okay. CMA, same thing, press on?
That's fine.
Let's go. Okay, first one is the CDBG COVID-19 funding.
Yeah, this is a follow-up to the item that we introduced before you last week. And it's as a result of the CARES Act. There was there's an allocation of the community development grant, block grant program, and it was allocated to the county. And the dollar amount is $717,852. Included in your pocket is a one-pager. The staff and Jacinda and Tom are available here to answer any questions here in a few minutes. Provided a one-pager identifying the objectives of this new funding. As I characterize from my own perspective, the eligible activities have not changed in terms of what the CDBG money can be used for, but based on the CARES Act, the objective changes because it has to be the activities has to be responding to the COVID-19 emergency. I'm gonna stop there because staff is gonna walk you through this white paper in terms of some of the nuances of this requirement. And in the back side of your packet is the actual memorandum from the Housing and Urban Development awarding the contract to the county, the additional money. And on the back side, it gives you somewhat of a framework on the eligible activities as well as some of the strings attached related to those dollars. This item is somewhat related to the next item, related to the EDC funding. And so perhaps the conversation may be blended between item 1 and item 2 of the commissioner items today. So with that in mind, we have a couple of suggestions for you as to how perhaps you may consider distributing those dollars. But I will let Jacinda and Tom to walk us through this white paper, answer any questions the commissioners may have, and then perhaps we move into the proposals the staff have for you.
don't have any questions up front, and we'll just wait for Tom. Go ahead, Tom.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So we shared this 2-page review with you last week as well. We have updated it slightly. So I think one of the important things we wanted to emphasize was, as this is CARES Act dollars, I know there's been discussion, and Ramiro's had discussions with other city mayors. This is separate funding from the CDBG entitlement funds that we receive. And so we believe this is separate from the process that those CDBG entitlement funds are allocated through, which is rotated amongst the City of Lacey, Tumwater, and the South County jurisdictions. City of Olympia, once again, has its own CDBG funding. So these funds are specific to the COVID response, and they're intended to prevent, respond to, and prepare for COVID-19. HUD has also indicated in their guidance that grantees should coordinate with local health authorities before undertaking an activity to support state or local pandemic response. We are waiting official guidance. HUD is supposed to put out a Federal Register notice with formal guidance on the use of these funds, but they've indicated that we should go ahead and plan to spend these funds and move forward without waiting for that official guidance. So there are some outstanding questions around the use of these funds in terms of what it means to respond to or prepare for COVID-19, what types of activities, how closely activities need to be related to COVID-19 that would be eligible. So we're waiting for that guidance, but HUD has encouraged us to move forward. There are a couple key waivers that HUD has granted with this money. One of them is the requirement that 15% of the grant be used for public service. So they have waived that cap. So 100% of these funds could be used for public service activities, where in the past that has been capped at 15%. I don't know if there's other information. The types of activities continue to be the same in terms of eligibility, as Ramiro said. These are public service activities. The primary benefit needs to be for low and moderate income populations. So that is the primary benefit objective of these funds. That the national objective is what it's called, that a majority of the funds need to benefit low and moderate income populations.
And
All
also,
right. Now, I remember this discussion from last week. It was last week, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
That we discussed this, and it was a good discussion. And so we're looking at two options. The RFP proposal, the RFPs go out. That's timely and staff intensive, or the other option is doing a regional integrated effort or approach to this. Just kind of doing that by way of refresher for my seatmates as well. So any comment? Do you have any questions of Tom?
it also, if I may, in addition to what just Tom stated, there also, the county can access 20% of this money for administrative costs, so.
So the bottom line of this discussion is to give direction as to which way we're going to go. Is that correct?
Yes, and after commissioners have questions related to this part, then maybe we can move into the options the staff is presented to you today.
Well, today and what we did last time, I'm moving towards, I want the regional integrated.
Before you get to that point, Commissioner, I think it's Commissioners may have questions, but also I would like to propose something, a hybrid.
A hybrid, okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Menser, you had your hand up.
I wanted to ask Tom about the money that we get, the calculation, the 717,000. That calculation is some kind of a population-based calculation. Is that correct?
It is correct. It's more complicated than straight population and includes poverty level and other factors.
But the bottom line is the calculation, the number that we are dealing with is an aggregate of the different groups that are part of the same. Isn't it based on the same jurisdictional combination that we get our, as you called them, entitlement funds?
That is correct. It's the same formula that the entitlement funds are distributed under.
Okay, so that number, the fact that we're getting that particular number of dollars is because we're linked in this arrangement with our neighboring jurisdictions.
That is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because I think it bears heavily on what should happen next.
Commissioner Edwards?
Yeah, maybe to clarify one other thing, I have a question. I think that's correct, except the city of Olympia gets their own fund.
Right,
That is
not
correct.
Olympia.
Okay, just clarifying that. Thank you.
So you want to propose something then? Romero?
Yeah, maybe before I can get to the proposal, from the staff point of view, maybe you can move into the next item, and that is the request from the EDC. You have attached a letter from the Economic Development Council. And I forwarded that letter to you last week. Hopefully you had the chance to review that letter, the content of it. So I don't gonna go through the specifics of this letter, but there is a funding request to all the jurisdictions, including the county, City of Lacey, City of Olympia, City of Tumwater, as well as the Port of Olympia. The overall request in the region from the EDC is $250,000. And the initial request was parceled out in a way that the county will be contributing, if the board would like to move in that direction, $70,000 out of that $250,000. City of Olympia was $70,000. City of Lacey request was $70,000. The City of Tumwater was $30,000. And this Port of Olympia was $10,000 out of $250,000. So the proposal, from my point of view, or staff's point of view, we discussed them last week. They would like to bring before you one of the CDBG eligible activities is economic development. And economic development related to the impacts of the COVID-19 emergency. So our recommendation is for you to perhaps set aside out of some dollars out of the $717,000, set aside to meet this request to the EDC, not necessarily just to the $70,000, perhaps hold it back a little bit more for any future contributions, if that is the case, how the board would like to move forward. And the remainder will be to put that as a regional conversation as to how this money can be distributed among all the partners in the region. That will be, in this case, City of Olympia, City of Tumwater, and the county. And I also had brief conversations with the City of Olympia, the acting city manager. And there might be an opportunity, perhaps they can bring some of their CDBG dollars allocations to the regional conversation, so we can have a much broader conversation. From my point of view, I think that absolutely makes sense to see how we can probably invest in the regional effort, and that way it will bring a larger return to the small investment that we have in front of us. So in a nutshell, the recommendation from staff for the board to consider will be to set some money aside of it, $717,000 to support the request of the EDC, and the remainder, the majority obviously, will be for the regional effort. If you ask me for specific dollars, I can probably give you some. My recommendation will be to set aside $200,000. Not to give everything to the EDC, but just to make sure that we have some capacity for additional requests down the road. And the remainder, $517,000, will be part of the regional conversation.
And Ramiro, if I can jump in for just a second to add on to that. Jacinda and I did review that request from EDC. We do have some concerns about its eligibility under CDBG. There wasn't a discussion of low mod benefit. So with the caveat that we would need to have some follow-up conversations with the EDC to ensure that the activities that they were moving forward would be eligible under CDBG, and we might need to work with them to make some revisions to ensure that national objective of benefiting low and moderate income populations was met.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I was in the process of doing that, but I appreciate that perspective, because as any federal money, they have some strings attached. And since the county is gonna be the responsible agency, they has to survive an audit down the road, we need to make sure that, the expectations are met, and the objectives are achieved as a result of this money to whomever is gonna be receiving the money, whether it's the EDC or any other outfit, as a result of the original conversation. Each of those, recipients will have to meet the expectations of these dollars.
So, Ramiro, did I hear you say that in a discussion with the interim city manager of of Olympia, that they're willing to potentially put up some of their own CDBG money into this?
That was the indication. I don't know if he has been able to touch base with the city council, and again, that was just the initial conversations that we had.
Well, that is encouraging. And I'm fully supportive of the EDC, the Thurston County EDC, because we've got to help them and help businesses and help our economic wellness throughout the entire region. You know, I'm talking about region as the county, but especially it's going to help the rural folks, I would hope, business-wise. So I like what you're proposing. What kind of number? I like the idea that you said 200,000 set aside for the EDC, but not give them the 200,000, because whatever we initially give, there'll probably be a follow-up ask down the road.
Yeah, and also will give the board the ability to, do something different if that.
Okay. Commissioners?
Remember the county has the option to take the 20% administrative fee. Under this proposal, the $200,000 will be part of that administrative fee as well, but I believe that adds additional capacity.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards, any questions or comments?
My concern is that the port doesn't get generally any of this money, is that right? But they're gonna put in 10,000 of their own, is that?
No, the $250,000 request from the EDC is not from the CDBG money. It's not. It's a request to all the jurisdictions as a whole.
Right.
So each jurisdiction is gonna be determining how they're gonna be meeting that request.
And we're probably gonna do that with this
So
fund.
my proposal is because we don't have any general fund money.
Right.
We don't have any other means and methods to meet this request. And this is perhaps an option.
And-
Robert has a.
And the means and method, I just wanna carry that through. So are we given a portion of this for Tumwater and for Lacey? Are they gonna come up with their funding source somewhere else? It's an ask that we don't know what they're gonna come up with, right?
Well, each jurisdiction, I believe they have to go through the decision-making process. First, if they want to support the request from the EDC, if that is the case, then they'll have to determine where the money will come from.
Okay. Okay, I'm good with it.
Okay. Robin? Go ahead, Robin.
I'd like to echo Tom's caution that we need to determine if this would be an eligible use of the CDBG funds. We do have a guidance from HUD on what eligible costs for the COVID money is, and also suggest that this may be an eligible use for the treasury funds that we're about to receive from the state as an alternative funding method.
Okay.
Something we'd want to look at.
Hang on, Gary. Ty?
I do agree with the regional integrated effort. But a little different than what's identified here. I mean, in my opinion, the ILA, if it doesn't technically require us to consult with our other jurisdictions on expenditure of these additional funds, certainly the spirit of the arrangement would require that. So I think that should be a conversation between the county, who has touched base with all of our South County representatives, the city of Tumwater and Lacey, and Public Health and Social Services per the guidelines, HUD guidelines that Tom outlined. So whether that's the mayor of those cities and Shelley, I think a strike team needs to discuss the various possibilities here. And I think that's how the money ought to be decided. We've heard in the course of the last week or so, this EDC request as kind of one bucket of requests. We've heard Shelley last meeting talked about putting money toward the public health infrastructure that's going to be required to open the economy back up as a possible target. We've heard, I think all of us got a follow-up email from Chris Wells, United Way, kind of a survey of where the different organizations are. The Thurston County Food Bank, Meals on Wheels program, which is specifically identified in the HUD guidance, the Child Care Action Council, the Nurse Found. I mean, we have a lot of basics that need to be addressed. And I'm not trying to say that the EDC request isn't good or bad or indifferent, but I'm not willing to vote on an allocation of those funds until that regional conversation has happened and we kind of get, again, a global look at all the different needs on the table. And then I trust that committee, whether Hutch sits on it on behalf of the board or whoever, I'll sit on it. Well, I mean, it doesn't matter to me, but I think that conversation needs to happen before we start allocating $200,000 of this money.
Jacinda, you popped up. Did you have anything to add?
I didn't, Hutch. I just wanted to make sure that you guys could see me if you had questions.
Okay. And it's interesting, Robin, you brought up the additional federal funding as well. And I do like that kind of a hybrid approach that Romero's suggesting. And the fact that if we set aside 200,000, that doesn't mean we're allocating 200,000 to the EDC. It'd be maybe a portion of that, but we still have some set aside for whatever purpose is what I understand. But I'm very much for the local people that are in the know and know where the need is, like the food banks, homeless backpacks, whatever the need is with whatever organization, they'll be best positioned to advise us on how to allocate the funding. But I definitely want to include the EDC in this. So whether it's simultaneously, one comes before the other, I just want some money put aside for the EDC as well. Commissioner Edwards, you have any thoughts?
Yes, I guess I'm with you on that particular issue. Addressing what Tom brought up about that national policy. Tom, what was the intent of the national policy again? Was it a percentage or the majority of, or what was the verbiage you came up with?
So without getting into too far into the weeds of the CDBG regulations, it's basically 51% of the beneficiaries need to be low and moderate income folks. So that could be low and moderate income businesses. There's also, it could be around creating or retaining low jobs that are intended for low and moderate income population. So there's a couple different ways to meet that objective. But it's primarily more than 51% or more than 50% need to be low and moderate beneficiaries.
And so if we met that criteria, I guess, and we were limited to that criteria, then maybe the other money could come from what Robin has just mentioned. Is that the way I understood that?
Yeah, from my perspective, it would, because there's a lot of documentation requirements that also will come with this money that will be a burden put on these businesses that receive these funds or for the EDC. So if there's fewer documentation requirements with the Treasury money, in terms of documenting low and moderate income, I mean, obviously it's federal money, there's going to be plenty of documentation requirements. But if they don't have the low and moderate income requirement, that can be a substantial documentation requirement for small businesses.
Okay, recognizing what Commissioner Menser has brought up, I'm all for following that track as well, but I do want to make sure we get this money over to the EDC so that they can start their process. So for the immediate need, I guess I'm inclined to set that money aside now for the EDC and then look at the rest of that pool of money to move forward on what Commissioner Menser was talking about. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Go ahead, Ty.
Just to clarify, my suggestion is purely procedural. If the if this jurisdictional group decides that the EDC is the right place to put the money, I'll support that 100%. I don't have any problem with that. I think that conversation should happen before we're setting aside and spending any of the money. So that's just my 2 cents.
Okay. And anybody from the bottom row here? Robin, anything? Linda, anything?
Allow me to provide maybe a step forward.
Hang on. Just quick second. Tom or Jacinta, you have anything to add? No? Okay. Romero, go ahead.
And maybe what I hear from the board is there is an interest and support the EDC request. And I believe that's what I sense from all the 3 board members. I just want to have a concurrence on that. That in fact there is a desire to support the EDC request.
Well, that's my desire.
Not the $250,000, but at least what it will be the portion of the county, which is $70,000. I think the question now is going to be where would the money come from? And based on the newly information, as Robin has stated, perhaps maybe an opportunity that we can access some of that, or some of the $15.7 million that can be set aside to the EDC, which in the long term may be better since they don't have to deal with the strings attached that Tom and Jacinda stated. So how about if you allow us to study that, making sure that yes, you are, the board, it is willing to support the EDC. Let's give staff some time to come up with what will be the best way to support that. They will be beneficial not just for the county and perhaps the EDC. And also what I'm hearing is the CDBG money, then it will be part of the regional conversation.
I like that approach. If you're able to sort out the that 15.7, and that alleviates a lot of the issues or concerns that we have with the CDBG money going to the EDC. Ty, you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. My concern about the regional conversation is that it obviously includes Tumwater and Lacey. It doesn't exclude our South, that we touch base and get input from our South County partners that we represent maybe at the table. And then that public health and put some 2 cents in, because I think that's what the idea is, that that's part of the HUD guidance we got. So as long as those pieces are in that conversation, then I'm very comfortable with what you just laid out, Romero.
Gary, anything?
No, I'm comfortable with that plan forward.
And I will also ensure that the South County is taken care of, because Tenino, I think it was 3 to 5 times their output of their food bank is 5-fold been going out to the community, and they get the majority, I think it's the majority of their food from the Thurston Food Bank. And so that's a hot commodity. And so I want that regional approach taken rather than the RFP stuff, so we can get things taken care of a lot faster and get it to the folks that need the help the most.
So what this, just to be clear, the new CDBG money will not be intended to supplement some of the past projects the South County cities had. That is not the intent. Okay. Also the South County cities will have an allocation from the Treasury, U.S. Treasury, as stated before. Just to refresh your memory, Bucota will receive an additional $25,000. Rainier, $63,300. Tenino, $55,200. And Yale, $274,050. So it's just to complement the whole conversation of that.
Well, and they can't supplant that money either, can they?
But no, they can use to respond to that emergency related to the food banks and all that perhaps they may see a need on their communities.
Good. Okay. Good. All right. Do you have go ahead, Robin?
I would just say that all of these funding streams sound like a lot of money. 15.7 million is a lot. 717,000 sounds like a lot of money, but we're going to have a lot of requests. And so I absolutely support Romero's suggestion that we take a look and see what the best source of grant is to pay for these requests. And I also suggest and support Commissioner Mentzer's suggestion that we need to know what all the needs are and get a handle on the many requests you will have to spend this money, because you will have more requests than you have funds to spend.
No, undoubtedly, yeah. So you have what you need, Romero?
Yes, I believe so. Unless you have additional questions on my proposal to move forward.
I do not.
I just, I appreciate you mentioning that about the South County. BoCC has approached me with some requests, and we'll probably, maybe we can work together on a joint communication. Just, I've been trying to explain to them what I understood the process to be, but it's an evolving situation. I want to make sure that they continue to have the answers that they've been asking for.
Yeah, that's the reason of my clarification, because I've heard some of that request as well. And just to, paint the whole picture to the rest of the commissioners, on the last round, they, in 2019, where the county and the south cities determined how the yearly allocation should be distributed. There was a little bit of compromise among all the different jurisdictions in which the county had two projects, two park projects in the Rochester area. Within that context, some of their proposed projects received less funding. So this new CDBG money cannot go back and supplement those gaps on that funding. It has to be specifically related to the COVID-19 emergency.
Okay. Gary, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out though, for those jurisdictions that are getting a piece of that, the food bank down at Tenino, which is doing a lot of work and dealing with the needs of that general area community. It's not just Tenino, it's also Bucota and Rainier.
The school district.
Yeah, okay.
So
yes, the school district.
Before you move on these two items, Commissioner, maybe on the Friday meeting with the mayors and the city managers, with your concurrence, I can probably broach the subject as to how this regional conversation should be, and who from each jurisdiction should be representing, who should be on the table to determine what will be the best way to distribute the CDBG dollars, the additional $717,000.
Please, yeah, bring that up. Perfect. Go ahead, Ty.
I might suggest that you shoot an email in advance so that they can sort of have thought about that, and then on Friday you can really nail down the.
Yeah, I'm already in touch with one of the mayors.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. Good. That takes us to public testimony.
Yes. Thank you. I just have a. So let me take you back to maybe 3 weeks ago when you took an action related to a request from juvenile court it was for you to waive the bidding requirements for an outfit called Heart Strides to provide services to juvenile courts, the individuals involved within the system. It was a renewed contract, and this outfit is located in, I believe, in the Rochester area. The board approved the waiving of the bidding requirements and provided direction to juvenile court, in this case, the administrator, Mike Finn, to go ahead and sign that contract. As soon as that action was taken, you received many letters from constituent citizen outlining some of the nuances of your vote related to perhaps a campaign contribution. That issue has been, I believe, addressed by an email from your attorney, and I distributed that email, I believe, 2 weeks ago. The same citizen also followed up with letters stating that perhaps the activities in which this outfit, Heart Strides, is operating are not permitting activities based on the land use. Based on that, 2 weeks ago, over 2 weeks ago, I asked my fin to stop signing that contract until we have the opportunity to look up to the details of this particular code violation, which that's really, in this case, that's what it is. We have been looking into this matter. Perhaps there is some evidence that those activities have not been permitted. We continue to work on that. I just want to make sure that you understand the contract has not been signed. And that is the reason why we have taken actions related to those letters and perhaps some evidence of those complaints. So as soon as we get a little more information related to the specifics of this activities and how that relates to the permitting process, then we'll go back to you. I will come back to you with what are the next steps. So, as a result of the public testimony that you receive on this particular aspect, that contract has been put on hold. It has not been signed, has not been executed. We're in the process to address and assess the level of complaints related to the code violations, related to the activities on this particular property. There is still a lot of conversations that need to occur with some of our prosecuting attorneys as well as our permitting process. And when we get to a point of a conclusion, I will give you the next steps on this particular matter. So at this point, there is not a conclusion, but we're working on addressing some of the complaints we have received.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from my seatmates?
No.
Go ahead, Commissioner Edwards.
I guess the only thing I think I remember when that came up, I asked about if this was this sole source bidding, and so it looked like we'd been doing this for a period of time somewhere down the road. How long has that been going on?
So they have been providing for quite some time, and you waiving the bidding requirements is not an issue, and that has been addressed by your attorney. That is not an issue. You have the ability to waive bidding requirements when you see fit, when perhaps somebody can provide justification as to why. That justification was provided to you, and you weigh in with your vote. The issue is different from that.
Okay.
The issue is whether those activities on this particular property have been properly permitted. So, two different issues related to the contract, and obviously the county does not want to, now that we know that perhaps there are some issues related to those activities, unpermitted activities, perhaps, on this particular property, then it is extremely important for us to pause on this contract until we have a good perspective as to what we need to move forward. And that's really just the gist of this conversation. So, yes, we have been working on this. Yes, we have heard the complaints from the citizen, and yes, we're working on that.
Okay. Anything, Commissioner Menser? No. Thank you for the update, Romero, and look forward to hearing back from you again in the future. That takes us to commissioner items. Commissioner Menser, do you have any burning issue? No. Commissioner Edwards?
And this meeting goes until noon?
Yeah. Noon.
Okay. No, I'll pass.
All right, thank you. Robin, anything? And Romero, any wrap up?
No, sir, thank you.
All right. That concludes our work session agenda setting for the 28th of April, and stay home. Don't touch your face. Be safe, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Boy.